Why does this movie exist? No, really. Why does this movie exist? The original Cars was one of Pixar's weakest films. The characters were bland, the environments were bland, and worst of all, the story was bland. Now, I don't hate the original Cars, but it's not something that I'd watch again, and it's definitely something I didn't think you could make a sequel out of, which is something I still don't think. So why did they do it?
We've got to have money.
I want to show you something. The only Pixar movies grossing lower than Cars were WALL-E, Toy Story, and The Bug's Life. It was not the most profitable decision. What does this say? Does it say toy maker? No, it doesn't. It says filmmaker. A success for them is making a good movie, not a toy based on it. And with the Cartoon Network thing last week, this is really starting to annoy me. You should make a cartoon or animated movie based on how much you think people will want to watch it, rather than how many fucking toys you think you could sell based on it. It's an ass-backwards way of thinking that really has to fucking stop. I mean, if it starts as a toy, whatever. But to make a cartoon or a movie specifically to make a toy is fucking ridiculous. Alright, so because toys is why this movie exists. Here's a better question. Why does it suck so much? Because it does. It sucks quite a bit as a matter of fact. Let's sit down and try to figure out why.
Agent Leland Turbo. I have a flash transmission for Agent Finn McMissile.
Wait, what? I am watching the sequel to that movie that was largely a slice-of-life story about an egotistical idiot learning humbleness, right? So yeah, this is a spy movie. Great. Could have made this movie its own IP, but no, gots to sell the Mater toys. So he cuts to the Pacific Ocean where an Agent Finn McMissile is riding Theodore Tugboat. They're stopped by a battleship. Or so we're led to thinking. Agent Finn manages to sneak a ride to oil rigs that are on fire. I'm no mechanic, but I'm pretty sure that you want to keep fire as far away from oil as possible. Why are they all on fire? Anyway, he sees an evil professor look at a television camera, and he goes to get a closer look. This guy's supposed to be a spy, right? You know, those guys who try to be stealthy as possible? That is clearly why he's in such a vulnerable position where anyone could just look up and see him. Then we see that the other spy had been cubed. This is a kid's movie, right? Oh, that's why there's fire on the oil rig. To have Finn blow his cover. Completely reasonable reason to bend the laws of physics. I mean, those guys on his level couldn't have possibly accidentally seen him. So we have an action scene that is surprisingly good, although they seem to be playing the majority of their spy cards really early. Eventually, Finn plunges himself into the water and jet skis away. A missile shot at him and he fakes them out. We finally cut to the star of the movie.
Mater, Tow Mater, that's who is here to help you.
Oh, you thought it was Lightning McQueen, that guy who's taking up most of the box art. Nope, he's a secondary character at best. The real main character is the guy who's tucked away in the corner. So, Mater does his job and we get exposition that is totally useless to us. And Mater acts like an idiot. Get used to it.
Welcome home.
Good to have you back, honey.
Congratulations, man.
Hey, it's all these characters that were established in the first movie that were pretty much added as an afterthought to this movie. We get Sentiment that is completely forgotten about, and then Mater both has them acting like idiots. Then Lightning spends some time with his girlfriend, who is barely in this movie. Also, how does a town that was pretty much dying have a fancy restaurant like that? Then we see that there's this oil tycoon named Axel who ran out of gas in the middle of the jungle and created environmentally friendly fuel named All in All.
Now listen to me. Big oil. It costs a fortune. Pollution is getting worse. I mean, come on. It's a fossil fuel. As in dead dinosaurs. And we all know what happened to them.
The writers realize that oil is pretty much the equivalent of water to these guys, and having environmentally friendly anything in a world populated by cars is really confusing, right? Axel is having a World Grand Prix to see what his fuel can do. And we see the typical racing villain. Weird. I thought this was going to be a spy movie. Couldn't imagine why. Apparently Lightning was invited, but he's taking some time off. After Lightning has been insulted, we have the cliche where the idiot forces their friend to compete. Eventually Lightning gets on the phone and gets into the race.
We won't be long.
No, don't worry about me. I mean, I've got enough to do here. Mater's gonna have a blast, so.
And now we begin with one of the most novice, rookie mistakes that a company can make. Making the comic relief the main star. Comic relief are by and large foils. The main character is supposed to play off of them, and it is incredibly easy to have a comic relief overstay their welcome.
You're bringing Mater, right? You never bring him to any of your races. Just let him sit in the pits, give him a headset. Come on, it'll be the thrill of a lifetime for him.
Alright, he'll bring his friend, and not you, his girlfriend, on a round-the-world trip. Glad to see that you're okay with that. Bye. See you later. So they go on the plane on their way to Japan. And the movie takes a break to have the characters see the sights. This isn't a travel guide. It's a movie. And movies are supposed to have plots that don't take breaks.
Okay, now, Mater, remember, best behavior.
You got it, buddy.
I want you guys to remember that line. Mater acts like an idiot and embarrasses Lightning, and we're apparently supposed to find this funny. Also, the character that should be the villain of this film has an enormous ego. Almost as big as Lightning's from the first film. Yeah, that's a large reason why I don't really care about the first movie. Finally, we get back into the spy stuff. Agent McMissile meets someone called Polly, and we learn that the camera from earlier is just a standard television camera. They need to meet an American agent, and because of spy reasons, Polly has to meet him, even though she's never seen him before. You probably know where this is gonna go. Then we get an obvious joke when Mater confuses wasabi for a pistachio ice cream. Then he embarrasses Lightning McQueen again. Okay, 1, how did you know that was water? 2, what does water do for cars? And 3, even if you did know that that was water, was that really the closest source of water that you could find? Then apparently Mater leaks oil. That's kinda gross. Another obvious joke, and Mater enters the bathroom. Then we get a joke that might be offensive. Then the American agent enters the bathroom. Yep, you predicted it correctly, congratulations. 2 goons attack him, and the American agent puts his tracking beacon on Mater. So, obvious plot point is obvious.
This cannot be him.
Is he American?
Look out, ladies. Mater's fitting to get funky.
Extremely.
Polly thinks that Mater is a spy, and Mater thinks that he's got a date. Then we get a rather interesting plot point. All in all, it becomes extremely dangerous when hit by an electromagnetic pulse, and the camera shoots it. So we've essentially got a torture scene. This is a kid's film, right? He accidentally reveals that Mater is the spy. Yum! Rated G. We get to the first of 3 races. We get a bunch of details that don't actually amount to much because the movie has decided to change focus into a spy film. And I'm not going to lie, the Grand Prix becomes less and less important as the spy plot pretty much hijacks the film. But the race plot struggles to fight, and it ends up muddling them both. Also, the spies think that the stupid things that Mater does is clever spy stuff, so it's like Mr. Magoo. Meanwhile, Mater is giving some tips to Lightning. Also, the evil spies use the camera to explode an engine of one of the racers. They see that Mater is in the pits and go after him. Polly hijacks Mater's communication and tells him to get out of the pits. Meanwhile, Finn McMissile is doing the actual fighting. And while all of this is happening, Polly's instructions keep messing up Lightning McQueen. This forces Lightning to lose the race. Mater acts like an idiot, eventually saying that his girlfriend is just a voice in his head. Yeah, that's a major problem with this movie. The dialogue forces the plot way more than reasonable.
I didn't screw you up, did I? I lost the race because of you. I don't need your help. I don't want your help.
Wow, you changed your attitude towards your best friend on a dime. There's suspicion towards All in All that it might have caused those crashes.
All in all, it's safe. Alternative fuel is safe. There is no way my fuel caused these cars to flame out.
Then we get the sad part of the movie, and I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be feeling here. Am I supposed to be mad at Lightning snapping at Mater for talking to an imaginary girlfriend? Am I supposed to feel sad for Mater even though he doesn't realize exactly what he did? Or am I supposed to feel disturbed that he was going along with what he thought to be a voice in his head? Either way, he's thinking about returning to America.
Probably introduce myself. Finn McMissile, British Intelligence.
I just realized, he's voiced by Alfred from The Dark Knight. Well, that's going to be fucking distracting. Also, I love it how the sadness from the last scene is just entirely forgotten to revel in Mater's stupidity. And now we've got another chase scene. So they do have a few more spy cards. This leads Mater to trying to board a plane while they're getting shot at. And we got a poop joke. Lightning McQueen gets the letter that Mater is going home. Alright, enough of them. They aren't interesting enough to be the main characters anymore. So back into the real plot where Polly checks the device. And now that the real plot decides to show up, it starts to fall apart.
Whose engine is this, Mater?
Well, it's kind of hard to tell from this picture, ain't
But
it?
you're the one who took it.
Holly?
Oh, right. Yes, of course. A good agent gets what he can.
Yeah, there are these things called follow-up questions. They're like the bane of the existence of contrived plots everywhere. You'd think that spies would have a few, or that the plot wouldn't insultingly shut them down like that.
Like a good neighbor, Mater is there.
Wonder how much State Farm paid for that. They think that the photo is a dead end, but Mater sees some new parts.
Well done, Mater. I would never have seen that.
He never would have seen that? That's like the only thing of interest in the photo. They're fucking everywhere. This guy's a secret agent. Really? Yeah, right. Never would have passed the second level of Phoenix Wright, let alone spy training. Mater decides to help them out with their spy stuff because he feels like he's actually doing something useful. Although he's not really doing anything other than what he does usually. Oh wait, that's the moral. Sometimes being yourself is exactly what people need, and you should ignore the times when it hurts or embarrasses other people. Onward to Paris. And yes, the Gustavs in the background is pretty clever. They go through the bazaar, which is pretty much just filler, until Mater blows their cover and gets the criminal they're looking for to run away. They knock him out and bring him to an abandoned garage. Then we learn about the term lemon from Mater. Cars that don't ever work right. All of the cars that are in this plot are lemons. There are implications all over the place here, so you can connect the dots yourself. But seriously, are lemons like a race of car in this world? We cut back to the other cars, and I have to ask why. We already know what they're going to do. They're gonna race the races and nearly get blown up. The movie already decided that this plot is not interesting. It comes off as pointless filler. It's trying to focus on Lightning sending Mater home, but,
He's a close friend? He's my best friend. Then why would you ask him to be someone else?
Yes, kids, your parents are totally in the wrong when they ask you to be on your best behavior out in public. You're supposed to behave differently in different situations. Imagine if I started acting like I was doing a review out on the streets. People would look at me like I was fucking insane. Back to the important plot.
Hey, come here. Make me a German truck.
Request acknowledged.
Check it out. I'm wearing Mater hoods.
Relatively speaking, of course.
The idea is to keep a low profile, Mater.
Have you ever wondered why you needed to tell a spy all this stuff that should be common sense to a spy? Anyway, for the final disguise, they had to fix all of Mater's dents.
Your dents are valuable. Really?
I come by each one of them with my best friend, Lightning McQueen.
So you've gotten every dent that you have in the last couple of years? Wow, I thought you were a bad influence on Lightning. Maybe he's a bad influence on you.
I don't fix these. I want to remember these dents forever.
And I want each pimple I ever had to remember each cheeseburger I ever ate. Give me a break.
In the meantime, you look a little light on weapons.
Yes, let's give the idiot an arsenal. I can't see how this could possibly go wrong.
Looking live at beautiful Porto Corsa, Italy, on the Italian Riviera.
Strange how you have to tell me that during the lowest rendered scene in the entire movie. It looks like a Civilization game rather than a Pixar movie.
Independent panel of scientists has determined that all in all is completely safe, okay? Safe. There it is.
Your scientists haven't determined that there's a slight flaw in it that makes it explode under electromagnetic pulses. You didn't run any studies on it at all, did you? Once again, I can't care about who's going to win this race, because that's not what the suspense is. The Italian car is almost a non-entity.
Is everything okay?
If you're worried about your fuel, man, don't. It's perfectly safe.
I just really wish Mater were here.
Yeah, even within this plot, the only thing that Lightning cares about is Mater. And we know that he's fine, so there's no suspense. Even when the race starts, they should be building up the camera cannons instead of worrying about this bullshit that the audience has been led not to worry about. Anyway, Polly convinces a tow truck to help her out.
Sounds like you'll need some roadside assistance.
She was talking to me.
You're not planning to replace him with Mater, are you? You know, that guy with an extremely distinct voice? And have him infiltrate some place with extremely high security? Oh wait, they are! Maybe I'm just being too judgmental. Perhaps they'll disguise Mater's voice.
Possible. Just apply the same level of dedication you've been using to play the idiot tow truck.
You look pretty tough. And wait, did you say idiot? Is that how you see me?
Yeah, that's also how Pixar, your creators, see you, since they've been playing up your stupidity for comedy throughout this entire film. The last one, and several shorts, starring you. Alright, so they're having him not talk. Gee, what a risk. I thought that the director would think that kids would get bored if Mater didn't act like an idiot throughout every second that he was on screen. Why am I even talking about the race stuff? I could cut every scene of this race out of the movie completely, and the plot would be largely unchanged.
Why, this place looks like it's made out of gold.
And he gets caught because of his completely different voice from the other guy.
Right now.
You are acting strange today, Ivan.
And they know the tow truck by name. How could anyone look at this script and not see the problem with it? Yes, Polly and Alfred are idiots, but do the writers think that I'm an idiot? Blah blah blah, it's a kid's film. But even kids could see the problem with this. They had three options here. One, they could have Mater shut up. Two, they could make Mater completely unrecognizable by showing risk and care for the story. Or they could do nothing and insult the audience's intelligence. But what do they care? They gotta sell a machine gun Mater toy.
He's so good.
You're milking this Mr. Magoo crap for all it's worth, aren't you? So they go to the meeting where the professor enters. Alright, let's count how many problems there are with this convoluted plot. Problem 1. When the hell did cars have fruit? The big boss, who no one refers to by name, any name, talks to them through a video phone. Why he can't do it through a normal telephone or a pure audio channel if he didn't want to be seen, I have no idea. Anyway, he gets them all angry because they're all outdated models. And no one makes parts for them anymore. Which is amazingly confusing. Problem 2. That's like not making pacemakers anymore because the only people who use them are too old. I could understand it, sort of, if these guys were poor, but they're all crime lords. Problem 3. Didn't Axel completely convert himself to a new kind of car? If it's possible for one, it's possible for all of them. Alfred and Polly learn that the camera is causing other cars to break down. Then we see the cars are starting to get angry at all in all.
The owners of the world's largest untapped oil reserve will become the most powerful cars in the world.
So what, do you plan to compete in fair and honest business? Most cars are already using oil, dipshit. Alfred tries to take out the camera but ends up getting caught in a magnet. Then Lightning and his enemy learn what happened behind them. Axel decides that he'll continue the race, but won't require anyone to use all in all. Quick question for any mechanics out there because this movie doesn't answer for me. Why can't lemons use alternative fuel? Beyond that, why can't they use it in context of this movie? Polly gets caught, and it turns out that Lightning is going to race with all in all anyway. So obviously they want to kill Lightning McQueen. Mater accidentally blows his cover, and then we get more of this crappy Magoo shtick. And hell yeah, Pixar is selling that toy. Mater decides that he has to alert Lightning. It doesn't work, and Mater gets kidnapped. How that happened in a large crowded area, the movie isn't going to bother telling us. Mater gets knocked out, presumably to get crushed in some junkyard somewhere in the middle of nowhere. But first, the dream sequence where Pixar tries to make you feel guilty for making you laugh at Mater's stupidity. No. It doesn't work that way. You cannot make the audience feel guilty for throwing your characters into contrived situations. It shows contempt for your audience. You have the perfect opportunity to kill your enemy, and you tie them up in a convoluted trap in the one place in the world that you don't want them to be. I just love that cliche. And I love it how it's the evil genius professor who always does that. Yeah, they're inside London's Big Ben. Well, their evil scheme is going on in London, presumably past all the security that would guard a famous national landmark. Look, I know that spy films are supposed to push the suspension of disbelief, but that's because they usually have the spectacle to distract from the workings behind it. This movie does not. I mean, it did back at the beginning, but they gave that up to have a disjointed plot and idiot character.
I'm not a spy.
You'd think that an actual secret agent would be able to figure that out. Yeah, he was playing the idiot. Especially in the areas where it wasn't fucking necessary.
I'm a fool. And what's happened to McQueen is because I'm such a big one.
It's your fault that evil supervillains are using an electromagnetic cannon in some conspiracy to keep the world on oil? Well, if you insist. So the mechanism of the clock threatens to kill them, instead of that junkyard that would have actually done it quicker. And the guys threaten to kill Lightning in front of them. Gotta love cliches. The first movie did, so why stop now? Axel here thanks Lightning for continuing to stick with all in all. So the race begins, and we finally have something the last two had forgotten to add. Suspense. Glad it took them to the last quarter. Wow, Lasseter. That's clever, considering Lasseter wrote and directed this movie, is reputed to love spy movies, and came up with this plot by thinking what would Mater do while he was traveling around the world. Lasseter, I like what you do. You pretty much saved Disney, but even when you're on top of the world, it might be a good idea to listen when someone tells you something is a bad idea. So, Lasseter made a movie that he wanted to make, and usually that's something that I could respect. But you still need to have good judgment in the face of blind passion, or else you make something like Cars 2. Anyway, the Beam fails to kill Lightning. The first time that I watched this, I thought that it was because he went around a turn and behind a building, which would have been a great way to take the plot, instead of what they actually did. It's something that amounts to nothing more than contrivance.
We snuck a bomb in McQueen's pit.
The next time he makes a stop, instead of saying ka-chow, he's gonna go kaboom.
Normally I'd complain about revealing the plan, but it's later explained and gives me other stuff to complain about. Anyway, Mater uses his Gatling gun to cut the ropes and escapes. Alfred and Polly say that they'll be fine.
Get some more dents, Mater.
Yes, go get more nicks, bruises, and scars. Go out there and get beat up, Mater.
If I can just reverse the polarity.
Hey, one of the biggest technobabble cliches out there. The clock mechanism breaks the rope because the plot wants it to happen, and they discover that Mater has lost something. Mater tells everyone in the pits that there's a bomb in there, which is exactly what you would do in a crowded area.
To me, the bomb is on you. They knew you tried to help McQueen. When we were knocked out, they planted it in your air filter.
Now, movie, hear me out. What would the bad guys have done if you kept Mater's stupidity in this point and he failed to get to the pit? Lightning would win the race, and the bad guys' plans would be ruined. So Mater starts driving away so Lightning doesn't get blown up.
If you get close to me, you gonna get hurt real bad. I'm the bomb.
Speak coherently! For the love of God! You easily told all those other guys that there was a bomb on you. Also, where the fuck are the other racers? Same amount of words. How hard is it?
Mater, you are the bomb. That's what I'm trying to say here. You've always been the bomb.
God, could you imagine if this movie was good enough to have shippers? And before the bomb could remotely blow up, Mater gets out of range because contrivance. Polly and Alfred chase down Mater and the professor. Alfred eventually catches the professor, but they're about to be dragged in by a magnet on a battleship. We cut back to Mater. Now that the bomb isn't going off, there is no longer any suspense. Alfred blows up the ship, Polly knocks out some goons, and has them beat up in a tavern.
Bomb? scrapped a tomato to kill you as a backup plan.
Backup plan? Mater, who put a bomb on you?
Yes, the plot is convoluted as all hell. Can we please finish up here? So the bomb can only be deactivated by the voice of the one who activated it, and the professor didn't activate it. Then we have an action scene featuring all the guys from the first movie that this movie barely remembered to write in. Seriously. Besides Luigi, none of their names were even fucking mentioned. What's the matter? Couldn't sell any toys of them? They can't remove the bolts on the bomb strap to Mater.
I get it. I know what needs to be done. Then do it. Look, nobody takes me seriously. I know that now.
Are they really doing what I think they're doing?
You stay. I go. No following.
No, of course not. They wouldn't risk sacrificing any toy sales.
Be yourself here. And if people aren't taking you seriously, then they need to change.
This is why Americans have such a bad reputation in other countries. So Mater has gotten everything figured out in a plot so convoluted, contrived, and stupid that only he could do it. And for some reason he's bringing along lightning.
Who's winning the race?
That's a very good question. Yeah, they're forgetting about the race, something that took up a whole third of the screen time. So they go up to the Queen of England with a bomb. Lassiter, you really think that Mater would do that if he went to London? And I thought that I had a little opinion of the guy.
Just cut to the chase.
Okay, it's him.
What? The guy who invented All in All has been trying to sabotage All in All. How?
I figured it out when I realized y'all attached this ticking time bomb with Whitworth bolts.
And you knew that this guy used those bolts because...
Same bolts that hold together that old British engine from the photograph. Holly, show that picture. And then I remembered what they say about old British engines. If there ain't no oil under them, there ain't no oil in them.
Because he was leaking oil at a party, that means he used the same bolts that was used to fasten your engine, which means that he did it.
This lorry's crazy. He's gonna kill us all.
And the British guards who are protecting the Queen are actually taking a risk on this theory based completely on fucking insanity.
Axelrod created the race, Mater. Why would he want to hurt anyone?
To make all in all look bad, so everybody go back to using oil.
Objection!
If he wanted to make it look bad, then why the fuck didn't he say that the scientists found a problem with them earlier?
This is going nowhere fast. We really should go, Grandmother.
One moment. I'd like to see where this is going.
It's going boom, and you are too if you don't get the fuck out of there!
Found that huge oil field just as the world was trying to find something else.
Objection!
Then he could sell both oil and All in All. He's the only distributor of All in All in the world. And if he invented a new fuel that could theoretically put oil out of business, then why the fuck would he be looking for more oil?
What if he came up with All in All just to make alternative fuel look bad?
What if? Objection!
Then why would he himself be pushing it? Why would he be bad-talking oil? If a business tycoon wants to sabotage the competition, why wouldn't they make an Elias pushing the stuff to do so? From your theories, Axel is literally the only person in the world with no motive.
Okay, that's it.
Clear out. Wait, somebody save me!
Yes, let's leave a rich tycoon to blow up because of a crazy. The pillar isn't that high up.
You're insane, you are!
First valid theory I heard about this whole thing. Mater, quick question. What if you're wrong about this? You blow up, he blows up, your new friends blow up, and your best friend blows up, all because you accuse the one person with no motive.
Deactivate!
Bomb deactivated. Have a nice day, Sir Axelrod.
Great, the one person from Mater's theories who actually had no motive actually did it. And why the fuck would you leave your name on a bomb? Especially a mastermind like this guy here.
The engine from the photo.
It's a perfect match.
Holly, in how many makes and models did this type of engine appear?
Standard in 7 models over a 12-year period. At least 35,000 cars were made with this engine.
The engine from the photo.
It's a perfect match.
All except the color.
Tow truck, figure it out.
Plot contrivance on the level of fanfiction.
Official, you're coming to all my races from now on.
Because it's just not exciting enough if I don't nearly get killed. So Mater gets knighted. Quick question. Who won the race? You cannot drop a subplot that takes up such a large percentage of the movie like that. So the movie is pretty much telling me that the spy plot was not enough to fill the entire movie. And if you don't have a plot with enough substance to carry a movie, then don't make the fucking movie at all.
This here's Finn McMessin. He's a secret agent. Don't tell nobody.
Hey, let's blow our cover to a bunch of random nobodies.
One thing I still don't get. The bad guys hit me with the beam from the camera, right? So why didn't I...
Well, you did go behind a building, or they can throw something out of nowhere.
Proved that All in All was actually gasoline. And Axelrod engineered it so that when it got hit by the beam, it would explode.
Also, maybe this would be a little bit more plausible if he wasn't the one trying to develop an alternative fuel, and it was competition that he was trying to crush.
If you're implying that I switched out that rot-gut excuse for alternative fuel, you're dead wrong, man.
No. You gotta establish things like that. And that doesn't count. It's just another fucking contrivance. And that was John Lasseter's Cars fanfiction, also known as one of the highest budget, low quality toy commercials in quite some time. But in all seriousness, is it the worst film that I've ever seen? No, of course not. But it's not well focused, it expects you to buy things that I doubt even kids would, and its messages are really confused. Not to mention the whole thing just reeks of marketing hacks. Bottom line, if you want a film starring cars for your kids, rent the first one. If you want a spy film for your kids, rent Spy Kids. The first two, not the third one, or the fourth one. And if you want to sell toys, be a toy company, not an animation studio. Mostly though, this film still fails to provide me for a reason why it should exist. I know how it exists. John Lasseter convinced Disney to let him do it by pointing to the toy sales of the first movie, to make a fanfiction he had been working on. But a machine gun mater toy is not a sufficient reason to make a movie. I mean, Equestria Girls created 6 new dolls at least, not 1. And considering that this film made even less than the first one, of course. This one's actually going to be made by Pixar, right? When I first saw that I was doing this movie, I got a reaction that I didn't really expect. A lot of people say that they really liked this movie. And while that's fine, opinions are opinions, it made me kind of curious. This movie, the movie that most people seem to think is the worst DreamWorks film ever, has more people who say they liked it than, say, Cars 2. Then I looked into it. Shark Tale is one of the most successful bad movies of all time. It was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Animated Feature, but I don't put much stock in that. Back then, every animated feature was nominated for an Academy Award. Well, that's not entirely true. This movie was nominated over both the SpongeBob movie and the Polar Express. Yeah, I don't take the Academy Awards very seriously. This movie is based on a toy. It can't possibly be good. This movie is based on a video game. It can't possibly be better than this film, which strings together a bunch of Disney cliches into a very cliched story. It'll be decades before an animated film wins Best Picture, and it's going to be a film like Waltz with Bashir when it happens. But never mind accolades, what's more surprising is Shark Tale's profits. For what's known as the low point of DreamWorks, it was massively successful. It was even #1 in the United States theaters for 3 weeks. It was the 9th most profitable movie of 2004, and 2004 was not a bad year in film. It wasn't even a bad year for animated films, really. Not the best, but still decent. Then I took a look at it, and it all made sense. This movie is a lot worse now than it was when it first came out. You might have heard of this little trick, doing everything possible to be hip and relevant, and trying to cash in on current trends. This is essentially what every Seltzer and Friedberg movie does ever. Every fact about this movie just seems like a corporate cash-in. Not only did they make sure to put in whatever celebrities were popular at the time, but they made sure to make the characters look like them, by creating these unholy monstrosities. And I'll be getting into that in just a bit. Everything from the way that they talk to the suspicious fact that another animated film starring fish was released to massive success just the year before. And as such, this movie has aged. It's aged about as well as a bag of rotten eggs on a summertime sidewalk. I didn't like this film growing up, and watching it again, it is the most dated, pandering thing that DreamWorks has ever made. And let's start with what you've probably already noticed. The animation. This is one of the ugliest animated features that I've ever seen. Mainstream animated features. It's not because the technology was bad or anything. From a technical perspective, there's no rendering issues. The characters move like they should. But this movie massively fails in terms of aesthetics. Something largely independent of technology. The characters that we'll be looking at for the next hour and a half find themselves squarely in the uncanny valley. I said that Marjorie's mom's characters looked like they were halfway through evolution. It's the same thing here. The only difference is that this time it was intentional. As such, it looks worse than movies that technically have worse animation, like Norm of the North. But beyond that, there's the color palette. If you go back and watch Finding Nemo, you'll see that the color choices were amazing. They really pop, and they massively vary throughout the movie, making Under the Ocean seem very appealing. This movie decides to go with the greasy, grimy algae look, making anything that's not ugly horribly boring to look at. The world of Shark Tale, through a pure aesthetic level, does not look like a fun place to be, which, in itself, could easily kill an animated film. The ability to create whatever palette you want is one of animation's strongest tools, and when it's done properly, we get movies like Fantasia and Inside Out. When it's done improperly, we get Shark Tale. But you know what? DreamWorks is best at taking ideas that look stupid and going above and beyond with them. If anything, their company stands for not judging books by their covers. I thought that How to Train Your Dragon and Kung Fu Panda were going to be stupid and pandering going in. But they turned out to be some of the greatest, not only movies in animation history, but some of the greatest series in animation history. So maybe we just have to look beyond the pale for this one. We start with the DreamWorks logo casting a worm into the ocean, who soon finds himself surrounded by a shark.
Hi, I'm Lenny.
Hi, Lenny! I look forward to hating you throughout the rest of this movie, because I hate pretty much all of the characters in this movie. Because they each find themselves portraying some of the purest forms of the character stereotypes that I hate. Also, this is just a minor nitpick, but I really hate Lenny's voice. You know that thing that Adam Sandler does where he makes his voice have a weird pitch to disguise it that makes it sound god-awful, despite him being in the movie supposedly being a selling point?
Get a hold of yourself, man! This is no time to act crazy!
Yeah, well, it's no less painful when Jack Black does it. Lenny is a shark who is a vegetarian, and he's an outcast because his refusal to eat animals. Considering the last movie that I reviewed, we're off to an amazing start. Rule of thumb, if you have a meat-eating animal that doesn't eat meat, your movie is probably going to bomb. It's just a little trend that I've noticed. Hey, you want to play a game? It's called Count the Product Placements. Literally 2.5 minutes into the movie and we get this screenshot. And then we get introduced into the movie's world. Okay, we're going to talk about the first major problem with this movie. I know I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but it's a big problem that's going to continuously come back throughout the entire movie. While watching this movie, I was constantly asking myself, why was this movie set underwater? Okay, I know why, but what story purposes did it serve? What did they really do with the world? Besides these stupid fucking puns.
Good morning, Southside Reef. I'm Katie Current.
Muscle Crow! Jessica Schritzen! Todd Stewart!
You get absolutely nothing. I mean, in these establishing shots, they try to give some jokes that don't really work, and they seem very lazy. And then we get nothing with the world being underwater. In Finding Nemo, the setting was integral to the story. In Harry Potter, the setting was integral to the story. If you're going to set a story in some place that isn't the real world, or our familiar world, the setting has to be integral. If not, you end up wasting time on establishing things that aren't important, and possibly confusing the audience. If you set Shark Tale in New York, literally nothing about the story would change. It would star Oscar, who works at a car wash, and accidentally kills a member of the mob, gets famous and hailed as a hero for that, and so the mob wants revenge. It's the same exact story. And if that sounds like a generic gangster movie, you'd be correct. Shark Tale is the most generic gangster movie in history, and they tried to hide that by setting it underwater. But that trick doesn't really work when they keep trying to make everything seem closer to a generic city than the ocean. So let's see how this generic movie introduces its generic main character.
Hi, I'm Oscar. You might think you know, but you have no idea.
Let's see here, you're a down-on-his-luck loser who wants to be a big shot, even though it requires a big personality to be famous, and you have no personality. Yep.
You so broke, yo baloney had no first name.
I thought I got this movie in English. I have no idea what he meant by that. So apparently this is referencing an old Oscar Mayer baloney commercial. Although it doesn't really make any sense due to the way it's written. Oh my god, Oscar is so poor he buys the generic brand of baloney. Wait a minute, they're fish! They don't eat baloney! So after introducing some characters who don't do anything in the story, and telling us next to nothing about Oscar, except that he doesn't like to work, he heads off to work. This is the car wash. I mean the car wash. I mean the attempt to hide the fact that it's a car wash. Where he finds out that he was punched in by his friend Angie. She has a crush on Oscar. And we'll be getting to this, but it's going to be one of the most annoying aspects of the movie. I know I keep saying that, but there are a lot of annoying aspects to this movie. We immediately see that Oscar is obnoxious and annoying, which is obnoxiously annoying. Maybe the screenwriters knew that, because with Angie, they went to the other extreme. How do I want to describe her character? Someone could be turning her into sushi, and she wouldn't say a thing. She'd stay absolutely silent. She'd glare at the people she wanted to rescue her through walls or something, and get angry when they didn't have psychic powers. And when that plan fell through, as a ghost, she'd get angry at the person who didn't know she was in trouble and failed to help her, because they didn't know she was in trouble. She's that kind of character.
Oh, you don't mean that.
Well, of course I do. You're like my best friend.
Now that's exposition. I'd say show, don't tell, but I think for once I can actually forgive that. Because if Oscar didn't flat out say that these two are best friends, there would be absolutely no way that the audience would think that he finds Angie as his friend. I'm not kidding.
Listen, tell me what you think about this. This is like the best idea ever.
You'll stop making those facial expressions? We're not even 10 minutes into this movie and I already want to puke. Oscar is probably the worst designed character in motion that I have ever seen in an animated movie. Yes, this includes Dorby's and Mars Needs Moms. And Oscar goes to do his job, but not before giving Angie another product placement. And then he reminds Angie that she's still on hold. The hold that he put her on just so he can get out of work, which he was late for already. Guy's wonderful, isn't he? Then we see the Sharks, where he's intimidating the boss of the imitation car wash.
Now you and me, we worked together a long time.
Please.
That I've lived my life for my sons, raising them and protecting them.
I'm also 42 years old, my blood type is AB negative, I ate tuna for breakfast, and the writers don't know jack shit about exposition.
Hey boss, big butts.
You know, that joke might have worked, except that literally no character in this movie has a butt. But as you can see, this movie is a Godfather wannabe, which confuses me on every level. You see Finding Nemo and you think, Godfather, what's the next brilliant fusion? You know what? I would totally watch the shit out of that. So the head shark wants his two sons to run the mob. I mean the reef, I think.
What? What?
What? Nothing. You said what first?
I didn't say what first. I asked you what.
No, you said and then what, and I said what.
This is dialogue, ladies and gentlemen. Why did this movie make $360 million again? Of course, one of the sharks isn't the person that the father wants him to be. He's an embarrassment because blah blah blah. It's another plot that you've seen before. Time and again. And it's going to end exactly the way you expect it to. Because the pufferfish points this out, the shark mob leader goes crazy and fires him, and says that he has to start paying to prevent the whale wash from breaking down.
Stop your moaning, Oscar. It could be a lot worse, you know?
Yeah, that's true. I could have this job and look like you.
You know, I don't think he said one positive thing about another personfish in this entire movie so far. Some jellyfish come and attack Oscar and bring him into the boss's office. Then this happens.
Hey, baby? Show me that, So, what's going down? Hey, baby, hey, don't sweat it, Sykes. A lot of whitefish can't do it, man.
Okay, what the fuck? I'd count all the reasons that this joke doesn't work, but we don't have all day. I want to keep this review shorter than the movie. They told a race joke in a movie about Technicolor fish, where no two fish have the same color. Oscar isn't black. He's blue, green, and yellow. If you wanted me to see Will Smith there, you should have made this movie in New York City and made it live action. The pufferfish is yellow, purple, and brown, not white. The joke doesn't make sense on any level. In the time since I've uploaded the first part of this review, a lot of people have told me that whitefish is actually a term for a certain type of fish. I think that might have been an accident and that's not what the writers were going for, because if they are, then the joke makes even less sense, because a pufferfish is not a type of whitefish. Also, the pufferfish boss keeps inflating because I have not seen that before. It's not like another movie taking place under the ocean came out this exact same year. So Oscar has 24 hours to pay 5,000 clams. So this character, he's lazy, he's inconsiderate, he's an asshole, he's a wannabe, he doesn't pay money back that he borrows. Why the hell is he the protagonist of this movie again?
I'm a little fish in a big pond. A really big pond. I'm a nobody. I want some of that. The top of the reef, where the somebodies live. I want to be rich and famous like them, but...
You know, of all of the things that are dated in this movie, it's not the humor or the characters or the animation that's aged the most. It's probably the plot. After watching BoJack Horseman, I can never watch one of these I want to be famous pity party plots the same way ever again. Because what people in this movie don't seem to realize is that being famous is not an end goal. People who become famous don't try to get famous. They do things like write, or make movies, or make people laugh, and they connect with a massive audience. I mean, if you're famous for just being famous, then you're probably the joke of all of society. Fame and being a somebody is just something that comes with it. And if you think you can get famous by doing absolutely nothing, you're an idiot on multiple levels. I mean, people who are famous for being famous, they aren't exactly very successful people. They're the jokes of society. They end up in tabloids all the time. After this movie came out, we've been getting more and more stories of people who've had their stars burn out. They've lost relevance, their lives have been turned to hell. They've had to turn to drugs or this or that destructive behavior. We learned that Oscar's dad was also working at the whale wash for 25 years, and then he died. And Oscar wants more than that. And in order to get that, he has a very successful plan. He doesn't go looking for new jobs. He doesn't take chances. He doesn't try to learn new skills. His plan is perfect. He waits for fame to be handed down to him. In the meantime, he blows other people's money on get-rich-quick schemes. So yes, this movie stars that guy who lives on your couch and who won't leave no matter what you do. And she cares about Oscar. I don't know why, but...
I want to be a somebody.
Oscar, you don't have to live at the top of the reef to be a somebody.
And to help pay off his debts, she gives him her grandmother's heirloom, a pink pearl. It'll get the money that he needs from Mr. Sykes. And guess what our hero does? The protagonist that we're supposed to root for and want to see succeed. He bets the money on a horse race. Excuse me while I bang my head against the wall. So Oscar has the perfect opportunity to be safe and comfortable and a chance to start over. And he blows it because he heard two random people, who might be crazy, talking about how the race is rigged. And he has absolutely no way to verify the story, and he just decides to go with it. If you think that this is bad, though, you should have seen what he did last week when he answered that email from the Prince of Nigeria. He is doing this with the money given to him through someone who he said, in his own words, was his best friend. This money came from an heirloom from this person's grandmother, who is presumably dead. Oscar is the most stupid and selfish character I've ever seen in an animated movie. He's more stupid than Norm, and he's more selfish than Buck Cluck. I don't hate him as much as Buck Cluck, because his idiocy usually only hurts himself instead of others, but it's a damned feat. Especially since this is his first scene after we get his backstory that's supposed to make us feel sorry for the guy. So, when it's said that this horse has the chance to pay out 1,000,000 clams, he gets the attention of Lola. You'll notice that the animators tried their damnedest to make a fish sexually attractive. Be right back, go into the bathroom. Now I want you to listen to the soundtrack here. Not too long because of copyright, but just listen to the soundtrack.
She's dangerous, super fan. Better watch out, she'll take the cash. She's a gold digger.
Wow. There's bad exposition. There's tell don't show. But they're literally telling us her character without showing any trace of it through songs that the people behind the movie didn't even write themselves, while looking at the most uncanny facial expressions that you can make an animated creature have. If that's what love makes people look like, then the species would be extinct eons ago.
You got a name? You want to tell me what it is?
See, you don't see how common it is until someone points it out. But as soon as someone does, you see it everywhere. Why does this love-struck blubbering annoy me? Because even shallow, lustful attraction is deeper than being tongue-tied. Because from a storytelling perspective, dialogue is a limited resource, and this is the equivalent of driving a coal-powered Hummer. Because it's annoying, because it makes me feel stupid for hearing it, because it drags the story to a screeching halt, because in a visual medium it tells us no information, except that the other character is attracted to them, which you could do with less distracting visual cues, because this has been overdone since the 80s. Shall I go on?
Deep down, I'm really superficial.
Yeah, the dialogue in this movie is excessively bad. Like, this might be some of the worst dialogue that I've ever seen in an animated movie. Just pointing out the stereotypes a parody or satire does not make. It's almost like they mix up the character biographies and the plot synopses and just used that as the final draft. Also, notice how all the fish characters are standing up and framed like humans would be, even though the characters aren't really given an anthropomorphic design like in SpongeBob. It's almost like this movie shouldn't have been set underwater. I know I keep bringing that up, but I'm saying this specifically now, because Oscar's horse trips and loses the race. Underwater. And they bring this up.
And he trips underwater. Who in the halibut trips underwater?
Indeed, it's almost like this movie should have been set in an above-sea movie starring humans, but it wasn't because he wanted to cash in on the success of much better movies. And yes, SpongeBob makes jokes like this, too, but when they do that, it doesn't really affect the plot. So, Mr. Sykes has his jellyfish goons kidnap Oscar to kill him, at a very crowded horse race where witnesses could easily see and hear him. Also, yes, this is another mob movie cliche. So, the two sharks go out to prove that Lenny is a real shark, and they come across Oscar. This goes about as well as expected. Lenny clearly explains the plan, and then this happens.
Look, I'm just pretending so you can get away. Now, when I turn around, you take off.
Oh, no. No.
What did I tell you?
I'm sorry, I didn't get it. You want me to go now? What are you...
Oscar isn't going to do one remotely intelligent thing in this entire movie, is he? I'm sorry, but this character is just too stupid. I get the point if this movie was supposed to be something like Beavis and Butthead or Wayne's World, but it's not. This character is supposed to be at least aware of his reality. His stupidity isn't the point. And that makes Oscar's endeavors very hard to watch. This leads to the other shark, Frankie, getting killed by an anchor, which Lenny immediately destroys, and he leaves, leading the jellyfish to think that Oscar killed the shark. Seeing this as an opportunity to get famous quickly, Oscar takes credit. You know how a lot of people hate the liar revealed trope? Not entirely sure, but I think this movie is going to follow that plot to a T, not taking a single deviation from it. So like a jerk, Oscar pushes aside Angie, and then he gets noticed by Lola. Sykes then places himself as Oscar's manager, despite almost killing Oscar and not really being able to contribute much of anything. Yes, he's the manager of a car wash, but that's incredibly different than managing a person, especially a walking disaster area that Sykes knows Oscar to be. They partner up, and neither of them are happy about it. So nothing about this makes any sense. Okay, well, Oscar is happy about the death, the shark's family certainly isn't. We learn that Lenny hasn't been found yet they somehow found the body of Frankie that only Lenny knew the location of. Then a shark says that he knows who killed Frankie. Then we get a fart joke, and he reveals where Oscar is, somehow. No sharks live in the reef, and the only person we know has connections would have no reason to inform them of anything anymore. In fact, it's revealed that the only person with connections to the sharks reveals Oscar's location later. It's time for a boring fame montage. Seriously, why the fuck does Oscar look so hideous? Anime movies take like a year to make. At one point, you should have looked at this and realized that it was fucking disgusting. The sharks looked fine. Oh wait, maybe that's because, in that case, they wanted the fish to look like fucking fish. So Angie goes to Oscar's housewarming party, and this is the part of the movie that she gets annoying. I am attracted to you. That was 5 words, 8 syllables. They took me a total of 6 seconds to say. Guess what Angie never says throughout the film until it's too late? Not only that, but when she comes close to saying that, she hides it. I know it's not as common for the girl in the situation to make the first move, even less so 10 years ago, but it's especially painful in this movie. She expects Oscar to read her mind, make him make the first move when she does everything possible to hide her interest. And on some level, she knows that she's going to be waiting on Oscar to read her mind for a very long time, because she knows that Oscar has trouble reading his own mind. But here's an even bigger question to why this romance confuses me. Why is she attracted to Oscar at all? Being the protagonist of the movie doesn't count. He gives her back her heartfelt gift, which to anyone who's not a massive idiot is a slap in the face. And he didn't even tell her that he tried to gamble it away. Seriously, what does she see in him? Or is she just into his hot body?
Huh?
My grandmother's pearl.
With interest. Now, I don't forget anything, and I never forget who my friends are.
And apparently she's been friend-zoned too. Now she's going to spend the rest of the movie being incredibly bitter and angry when Oscar goes for someone else, despite the fact that they're not together and they never have been.
It's amazing.
I know, it's beautiful, right?
Like your new apartment. It's wow.
Seems the Shark Slayer not only conquered a few sharks today, but maybe a few hearts have been snapped up. I'm Katie Current, here live. What?
Everyone in this movie is an idiot. 5 words, screenwriters. 5 words. And then comes Lola. You know, when getting into a relationship, there are some things that come off as red flags, and they tell you of a person that you should probably try to avoid. And one of them is your partner being shallow. You know, like Oscar is. But Lola here outright admitted that she was shallow. You know, there is many reasons why show don't tell is a rule. Because when you tell something like, this person is shallow, it makes Oscar look like a fucking idiot! Of course, the scene can't go anywhere because there are some sharks swimming through the reef. And because Oscar is now the Shark Slayer, it's his job to take them out. Tells you, you don't get to be famous for doing nothing. Outside, Oscar meets Lenny.
He could be anywhere. Ooh! Shh! The Shark Slayer.
Everyone in this movie is an idiot. He was there when his brother got killed. The shark that everyone was claiming to be killed by the Shark Slayer. He should be the first to know that there is no Shark Slayer. Am I going mad? And because Lenny doesn't want to go home, he wants to live with Oscar.
Are you crazy? Please.
No, he's an idiot. If he was crazy, then his behavior would make sense.
Wait, you mean you?
Yeah.
When the anchor?
So you're afraid of the Shark Slayer, even though you know that the shark claiming to be killed was killed by the anchor and not the Shark Slayer. Yep. No. Go back and rewrite the fucking script. And because this is a by-the-numbers liar revealed story, Lenny takes advantage of the liar and manipulates him with the lie. Oscar, for some reason, goes along with this. Let me describe what exactly is going on. No fish would listen to a rogue shark. Lenny isn't going to hurt anyone. He's a vegetarian. And Lenny just said that he was an outcast and he couldn't go home. To Oscar's face. Yeah, everyone's a moron. Moron party, let's go! Am I watching Shark Tale or Idiocracy? Lenny tells Oscar that he's a vegetarian, then we get the stereotypical I said I'm not going to laugh, but I'm going to laugh joke. And then Oscar learns that Lenny's father is the Godfather. The movie's words, not mine.
Gee, if Pop knew that, he'd ice you for sure.
Was he the Godfather or something?
Yeah.
What you mean, yeah?
Yeah, he is.
You know, it's pretty tacky to point out what you're plagiarizing by name. And Sykes is on the phone with the shark, and he keeps making all kinds of big promises in Oscar's name. Seriously, I am legitimately curious. Why did Oscar let this guy be his manager? I've watched this movie plenty of times. Like I said, I grew up with it. But I could never figure out why Oscar let Sykes be his manager. Oscar never really liked working for Sykes. Sykes is a bad manager, not only because he's making deals with the mob, but he's also giving money to someone who never pays up. He gets Oscar into trouble, and oh yeah, he tried to have Oscar killed by his 2 jellyfish goons. And now, because of Sykes, the sharks are going to kill Oscar. If I didn't know any better, I think this was all just one convoluted revenge plot on Sykes' behalf. And he knew exactly what he just did. So Sykes leaves and...
You don't want to do that.
I don't?
You have worked your way to the top. You don't want to go back to the bottom.
I'd be ranting at how they try to make her abuse seem comical, but all I can really see is despite staring Oscar in the face, she's not actually looking at him, and her eyes are going off in random directions. So when Oscar goes to check up on Lenny, he finds out that Angie knows about him. So the only reason that Oscar is keeping him is so that he can keep Oscar's secret, which he just failed to do. Yet the only reason he was able to tell Oscar's secret is because Oscar kept him. Excuse me for a moment.
What were you thinking?
You know what? I think that we need some visual representation to show what was going through Oscar's head at any point in this movie.
Remember what Angie said. Remember what Angie said. No lucky day to win.
With how long you've been friends and attracted to him, I thought that you most of all would know how utterly fucking stupid that he is.
How could you lie to me, Oscar? Me!
Don't take it personally. Come on, I lied to everybody.
Like I said, there's plenty of reasons that there's this rule, show don't tell. It's not something we tell writers just because we want to be mean. It's because when you do something like tell us that, say, these two are friends, then it makes it really hard to buy when we're shown nothing but contradictory information.
Sharks are coming to get me!
And they should.
You realize that means they're gonna try to eat you too, right, dumbass? They're gonna eat the whole fucking reef. So Lenny and Oscar come up with a plan.
Point taken. What's the plan?
Or they try to before Angie interrupts them.
You tell the truth, and you go home.
You know what? I see Oscar and Lenny's point. In fact, this is the smartest thing that they say in the entire movie. I'm serious. The only thing that's meant to be wrong and that goes against the plot is the most correct and right thing that they've said. Yes, in this movie where the lesson is that it's good to tell the truth, they made telling the truth the worst possible thing that they could do. You know how everyone loves Oscar and has made him really famous right now? And he's spending a lot of money given to him because of this, and he's doing all of these brand sponsorships and deals. If Oscar told the truth right now, he'd go to jail for fraud, and he'd be sued and lose everything he had, everything Angie had, everything his children had, everything his grandchildren have, for about 100 generations. Continuing the lie right now is the only logical option. Or is Angie in on Mr. Sykes' revenge plan too? Then again, their way of going about this is... I'm gonna be as stupid as Oscar by the time this movie is over, I swear. Here's the plan. Oscar is gonna fake Lenny's murder. The Godfather shark is mad at you because you killed one of his sons. The perfect way to stop this is to kill the other one of his sons and make him even more pissed at you with even more blind rage. Everyone's a moron. Everyone's a tool with this harebrained scheme. Everyone's a moron. Everyone's a moron.
You can't handle the truth. You had me at hello.
And it makes me want to scream. And because Logic is dead, the Shark Mafia sees Lenny's fake death, and despite them having more numbers and knowing that Lenny isn't exactly the sharkiest shark out there, that intimidates them enough to run away.
Hey, Lola.
Seems the Shark Slayer not only conquered a few sharks today, but maybe...
I'm sorry, but if you haven't said anything, especially with the intelligence of someone of a brick wall who needs you to talk very slowly and spell it out, I can't feel sorry for you or like Oscar did something indignant. Especially because she was the one who kissed him. He didn't kiss her, she kissed him.
Ange, what is the problem?
There's no problem. I don't have any problem.
You know, I don't think you two are really communicating, and I'm no psychologist, but I think that's putting a severe hamper on your relationship. Just saying, you might want to be more clear with Oscar. Use your words!
Just tell me, Oscar, because I'm curious. Why do you think she's interested, huh?
Considering that she flat out said that she was shallow to Oscar, I think that he knows. And because Oscar is into her, that means that Oscar is pretty shallow too. Which once again makes me wonder, why the hell are you attracted to him?
Do you think...
No. This is who Oscar has always been, and the lies and stuff just unmasked it. When the lies go away, this is who Oscar will be. Oscar and Angie are people who value vastly different things. And you know, it makes me feel like these just aren't the right people for each other. Oscar belongs with Lola because they're just as incredibly shallow as each other. This is how badly they screwed up the romance in this movie. Or rather, how badly they screwed up with Oscar. Because most of the problems of this movie come down to Oscar. I seriously don't know what Angie sees in Oscar. He's stupid. He's shallow. He doesn't get her signs. He's never there for her. He doesn't listen to her. He betrays her. He doesn't care about her gifts. Yeah, there's accepting someone for their flaws, but then there are also these people with no redeeming value. Honestly, I don't want these two to get together for Angie's sake, never mind Oscar's. Like I said, without the money, and without the lies, and without the fame, Oscar's still going to be the same stupid and selfish, awful person that he is now. So, Oscar takes a walk through Skid Row before he sees that someone is in his penthouse suite, and a party has started without him. Are there no trespassing laws in this world? And we see Lola trying to talk Oscar out of his funk. I don't really know what's going on here. And Oscar realizes that he's in love with the girl that told him that all of his dreams are stupid and he should just forget them and that all he needs is her. What's the matter, Angie? I thought you wanted people to read deeply into your intentions even though you didn't want to say them. But honestly, looking back, that's what all of her dialogue sounds like. You don't need to be big and famous. All you need is the people who love you. All you need is me. And she communicates this through mind games, waiting for an idiot to fall in on her signs, when she should know him well enough to know that he's too stupid to do that. So Oscar tries to break up with Lola. Please tell me that that joke is as dated as the rest of the movie and no one finds that funny either. Then the next day, he finds out that the mob kidnapped Angie, the girl that he only decided was his girlfriend with himself the previous night, who was pretty much invisible to him every other time. Then Sykes learns that Oscar is a fake, and they go to a sit-down where everyone is afraid of him. Then the Shark Godfather comes in, showing that they've got Angie. So apparently it was Lola who went to the sharks, without, you know, getting eaten. Why does this movie take place underwater and starfish again? It does literally nothing but hurt the movie. And then Oscar tries to bluff them out by having Lenny eat Angie. And because eating fish, a meat-based product, makes the meat-eating shark throw up, you know where this is gonna go. So Oscar keeps going on, bragging and gloating because he's an idiot. And this reveals that it's Lenny.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hey, boss, it's Lenny. He was wearing a disguise so we wouldn't recognize him, but now he's not wearing a disguise.
You know, they're telling us what we just saw. It's not a joke, right? Stating what's going on screen. It's not a joke. If that was the case, my videos would be hilarious, wouldn't they? Or did you think that if, for 1 second, you actually showed something instead of outright told the audience, they'd be too stupid to figure out what was going on? At this point, I could believe either.
Listen, it's not his fault. This is between you and me.
What did I ever do to you?
You probably ate a ton of his friends, family, and neighbors. Your crime net ran his town and his place of work. And when Oscar couldn't pay the debt that you set forward, someone tried to kill him. That's just a short list of what you did to him. And now we get into a climax. Thankfully, that means we're almost done. Oscar lures the shark godfather to the whale wash and gets him trapped. Or not.
Lenny? What are you doing in there?
Sorry.
It's funny, he's stupid. Then Oscar traps the shark godfather. So then the crowd comes to hail Oscar as a hero. Now that he has finally actually managed to defeat a shark, he's going to say that he can't fight shark.
Stop! I am not a real shark slayer!
Yeah, Phoenix Wright, I've got some new work for you. It's quite lucrative. You see, there's this idiot who took up a bunch of brand deals claiming that he was this shark slayer. And that was the pretense that they hired him to advertise their brands. Of course, if he kept lying, I wouldn't need to call you. But he told the truth, and now every single product placement in history wants a piece of his ass. So this client is going to keep you in work until you're 200 years old. Seriously, in this movie where the moral is that the truth will set you free, has set up a moment where telling the truth will probably land Oscar in jail for a good long time. And don't say that this is just a kid's movie and I'm thinking too deeply about it. If this story wasn't animated fish, it'd probably be rated PG-13. This is a story that's point for point a rip-off of The Godfather, which is not a kid's movie, with on-screen deaths, someone brutally getting hit in the head with an anchor, complicated relationships between stupid people. Oh yeah, and attempted murder. And the most horrifying CGI that I've ever seen. Oscar's face right there should get this movie rated R. Actually, it should be rated like NC Nobody.
I wish I knew now what I knew then.
I still don't think that Oscar has the capability to know anything. And after all of this, and after all of the abuse and the ignorance, he still gets the girl. Look, I can understand why Oscar might be attracted to Angie. Sort of. But why the hell is Angie still attracted to Oscar? Maybe there's a reason at the beginning of the movie, but after everything he did, after betting gifts on horse races, after ignoring all the signs, after having her swallowed by a fucking shark, why does she like him now? Because he's no longer lying and now he's happy to work at a dead-end job for the rest of his life? Young love. Young, stupid, divorce in 5 years love.
Oscar, excuse me, Oscar? You've lost everything you lied so hard to achieve. Tell me, what's next for you?
Ooh, the first lawsuit is coming from I mean Coral Cola. That should be an interesting one. I hear their legal department is feisty. Seriously, don't be a lying asshole. It's one of the oldest morals out there. There are ancient mythological stories about liars getting their comeuppance. How do you screw up the most basic, cliched moral of all time? Is Shark Tale the worst movie ever? No, it has a few problems that just grate on you as the movie goes on. The biggest problem is that it's largely cliched and that Oscar is a moron. You've seen every part of this story before somewhere else. And you've seen the parodies and satires of them too, to the point that even they're beginning to be cliched. And this cliche plot is marred by stupid writing and stupid characters. This is why a lot of people don't like DreamWorks. Not this movie in particular, but all the stupid, in-your-face tropes that this movie uses. Speaking of that, you know when Pixar made Toy Story, they had a problem with Woody. He was too much of an asshole in the earlier versions of the movie. So do you know what they did? They rewrote it and made new versions. I don't know why they didn't rewrite this one in a few times. It could have been decent. Sure, the animation wouldn't have really held up, but at least the story could have. Oh wait, I forgot. If they took time rewriting this movie, then Finding Nemo wouldn't be relevant anymore, and there'd be no more reason to make this movie at all. When I first heard how hated this movie was, I thought it was only for the broken, uncanny motion capture. After watching the movie, I can say that that is clearly not the case. There is very little to actually like about this movie, from its characters, to its story, to its production. But let's talk about the visuals right away before they get distracting. Too late. Mars Needs Moms was made by Image Movers Digital, a company known for making all of their animated films with motion capture, a technology that by all means is still in its infancy, and in my opinion, it doesn't have much use in the realm of animation. It takes more effort and more money for a worse product than simply designing a character from the ground up. The results always look creepily uncanny, even in the better productions, and it really feels like a way that companies are trying to use to sidestep creativity. In this movie, though, they've done it even worse. Our main character in this movie looks like Peter after Jumanji cursed him to look like a monkey. All of the humans look like they've gone halfway through evolution. But you know what? If we just judge the visuals of Toy Story to determine the potential of CG animation, that technology would be bad too. Even now, motion capture is still a developing technology, and as such, I'm not going to hold it against this movie too much, even though their earlier motion capture movies looked much better. Even then, there's an excuse for that. They're trying to get through the uncanny valley. Let's see how Mars Needs Moms, the biggest animated bomb, stands on its other merits. This time, the sound of the actual footage should be fine. The movie starts, appropriately enough, on Mars. There's the Mars rover examining right by the alien base. By the way, it's almost a major plot point that humans don't know about the existence of Martians. And you start with the Mars fucking rover. The first shot of the movie, and you screwed up. We see that there's actually life on Mars, but the Mars rover didn't. Some of these newborns pop out of the ground. If that's as appealing as they can make the aliens look, I'm not too sure that I want to see what the humans look like. They actually kind of remind me of Norns from an old PC game called Creatures, that for some goddamn reason doesn't have a Steam release. These guys are just a lot less appealing though. Okay, what the fuck? This is one of the most rookie mistakes that you can make. You start us off in an alien world with a language that literally no one can understand. You made it up, and you don't think to add in subtitles? Battlefield Earth had subtitles. Literally everything these aliens are saying is meaningless. I know that your main focus is your motion capture technology, but you can't just throw the story like that out completely. For some possibly explained reason, the aliens zoom in on Earth to a girl jumping around for ice cream. If her height is any indication next to her mother, she's probably in high school. She's also a spoiled brat. They come across some more mothers. And yes, it's important to the story that they're only interested in mothers, and we'll get to that later. Eventually they come across one mother who has a son just as disobedient as the others. This is going to lead to a lot of confusion later on, but it might not do that if I could actually understand what the aliens are saying. Eventually the kid does take out the trash, and the aliens love it, and they get all sinister. And as you might have guessed, this is going to lead to some morality problems down the road, and more plot confusion. This is going to be fun. We cut to our main characters. Our main character is named Milo. He gets a phone call from his overworking father. This is going to lead to many problems of various types down the road. Are you seeing a pattern here? Milo wants to go see a movie with his father, which, unlike the big baseball event that's usually done with this cliche, going to the movies is easily reschedulable, and so this does not hold any weight of any kind. Also, the voice actors really don't match their age.
You didn't eat your broccoli.
Broccoli makes me barf. Besides, it looks like brains.
It might be me, but Milo sounds way too young. And this is going to sound very mean, but the mother sounds too old. Either way, they're almost as distracting as the visuals. They clearly want to show off each and every little micro expression, but it's just too hard to look at. If you want to make a tech demo, make a tech demo, not a movie. Also, we learned that Milo is a pretty disobedient little asshole, and as you might have guessed, is going to bite this movie in the ass. A lot of things are going to bite this movie in the ass. It's almost like the beginning isn't tied to the rest of the movie at all.
I thought I told you to go to bed.
You didn't say get into bed. It's not specific.
Milo! My life would be so much better if I didn't have to be a nagging mom.
Oh, my life would be so much better if I didn't have a mom at all.
Wait, I know that this kid is supposed to learn his lesson by the end of it, but that was just too damn mean-spirited. They hold on how much those words hurt, even though most mothers probably wouldn't take it to heart that much. Kids can say very stupid things. Besides that though, you've given me nothing to like at all about Milo. There needs to be something that you can gravitate to that makes him want to learn his lesson. All I know is that he's a mean-spirited kid who is disobedient. Oh yeah, he likes zombie movies. That doesn't help with anything. Every single kid on Earth is supposed to relate to this kid because he likes zombie movies. That is literally the only other facet of his personality. He gets a realization, but it's a little bit too late. He tries to apologize, but finds a glowing light right outside his mother's room. She's been abducted by aliens. Milo runs out to try and save her or something. He finds the aliens putting her in a rocket ship. Since she's moving around, it's obvious that they didn't use any anesthetic. So she's a pretty damn heavy sleeper. He attacks the rocket ship with a stick because he's an idiot and somehow gets whisked away. As the rocket ship is launched into space, the movie is more intent on showing off the animation. It doesn't help that Gmod ragdolls move more realistically. Through a technology that's never really explained, the spaceship almost teleports to Mars. It lands at a base that the Mars rover seen at the beginning of the movie never caught on to. I wouldn't complain, except that there's really no reason that the Martians would need to hide, or not be able to breathe air on their own fucking planet. It may seem small, but it's the little things like this that can really make your movie. Not helping is that what should have been an oversight is a crucial plot point later. Outside, the Martian leader sees a colorful graffiti tag on a wall that was literally just underground, and gets angry about it. She talks to one of the aliens. I don't know her name because fuck subtitles, am I right? The aliens have found Milo and do something with him. If you have to hide a twist by flat out removing what people are saying to the audience, then it should not have been a twist in the first place. This is one of the most frustrating design choices that I've ever come across. Seriously, has any other movie pulled this card? And how did they do it better? Milo wakes up in a prison ball thing and wastes some time until it opens for no reason. Do you know what gets him to panic? Not his mother being kidnapped, not being taken to an alien planet. It's the lights turning off. The fucking lights. This isn't a horror movie where there's a monster lurking in the dark. This is a science fiction movie where the aliens need light too. It's not Dead Space. When the aliens come by, a comprehensible voice tells Milo to jump down chute number 3. This gets him to land in a world of garbage. Once again, ragdolls have more realistic physics. Also, there might be irony from earlier or something. It goes nowhere and isn't really important. Eventually, Milo comes across the denizens of this place and thinks that they're zombies. I have no idea why. I guess when that's all you have to work on personality, that's what you have to go with.
I'm warning you. I know karate. Well, at least on the Wii.
Because that doesn't date this movie at all. This scene is remarkably stupid.
She's the one that feeds me. She washes my clothes. She washes my clothes. My mom, she vacuums the house.
I love that all of the ways he describes his mother has to do with chores. How do you describe your mother? She makes me food, she washes my clothes, she vacuums. And he does this 3 times in the movie in the exact same way. He really does have a low opinion of his mother, doesn't he? Once again, the scene goes nowhere, and Milo gets tied up by a machine and flies to the base of an actually human-looking individual. Yeah, for some reason they managed to get this one model right, and not uncanny at all. But they couldn't do the same for a single other character. I don't know why or how that happened. His name is Gribble. He claims to be a part of Ronald Reagan's astronaut plan to stop communism or something. And because he's been here since the 80s, he talks with a lot of outdated slang and references. It's painful when writers do this by accident. So it's very painful when they do this on purpose, in an attempt to be endearing. Immediately, there's an earthquake that isn't explained, and then Gribble shows Milo his room. Character development is not an excuse to stop the plot. Milo's mother is in danger. You have better things to do than shoot the breeze. Gribble gives Milo a belt that will center his gravity, or just make him heavier because Mars. Then Gribble does something actually useful. He gives Milo a translator. I'm sorry, but 20 minutes in is still too late if you had plot-relevant dialogue that no one can understand. Gribble tells Milo that he's in a terrible movie and it's best to just give up everything right now, until Milo sees his mother on a television screen. Gribble immediately tries hiding this from him because the Martians are gonna kill his mom. Milo's a bit slow to the punch though, so he won't realize this until about 15 minutes in. Instead, Milo stops Gribble from being incompetent and useless and gets him to tell him the Martians' plan.
Fact is, Mars needs moms.
Hey Bob, do you think that would make a good title for this movie? What? No. That's the most stupid thing that I've ever heard in my life. I mean, it sounds like a parody of the plot we're doing. Wait a minute. We're supposed to be taking this seriously? Oh my fucking god. You know what? That's it. I quit. But in all seriousness, we see the plan here. Every 25 years, baby Martians pop out of the ground because the target audience is too old to believe in the stork, but not quite old enough to know about reproduction yet.
And, the Martians, they're terrible at mothering, which is ironic, really, since the ones running the place upstairs, they're all female.
Dude, that's not irony. Parenting and leading are 2 different skills. If you treat your soldiers like children, or vice versa, you're not good at your job. So that's not irony. So the Martian girls get a nanny robot that can only be used once because this genius super society cannot improve its technology in any way at all. Instead, they need to do this convoluted bullshit where they take a mother from Earth and steal her brain to power the robots. Are you sure that they're playing this straight? I mean, this was a cliche in the 1950s in cheesy B movies. Not only is playing this straight completely stupid, but it's cliched beyond all belief.
find someone who is really good at controlling their own kid.
Oh, my life would be so much better if I didn't have a mom at all.
Yeah, apparently the Martians only look for a fraction of a second. So kids, it's best not to take any chances. If you listen to your parents at all, for any reason, the Martians will think that they're good parents and take them away, kill them, and put their brains in a robot. You need to disobey them for their own protection. Wait until we get to the real moral of this movie. Milo wants to save his mother, so Gribble gives him a wristwatch that counts down to sunrise. You realize that your audience isn't Martians, right? The hardest part of science fiction is conveying these alien ideas and concepts to the audience. So, let me give you a hint on what to do here. It really helps to try. Gribble comes up with a plan that's most likely going to get Milo killed. I know I said I wouldn't complain too much about the animation, but no close-ups, please. So here's Gribble's plan. Let the Martians chase and scare Milo to the point he doesn't care about his mother's dying anymore. Number 1, that's stupid. Number 2, that's horrible. And number 3, Gribble of all people should know why this plan won't work. For what it's worth about this movie, the set pieces are pretty damn impressive. They almost look like something out of Star Wars. During this time that is mostly filler, they try to explain some concepts about the world, but they could have been done at literally any time. And some of them were done earlier. As such, I'm not going to tell you about any of them here. We've seen most of this before. Since Gribble is an idiot, his plan backfired, and now Milo is in huge trouble. And as such, Milo does what he does best. He runs around some hallways. I mean, there is a lot of running in this movie. Half the time, I feel like I'm playing a David Cage video game.
Tell me which way!
Oh, did you just call me an idiot?
Which way? I'm lost here!
No. I think that you have to apologize now. I'm waiting.
Alright, I'm sorry!
Milo hides in a closet, and Gribble gets captured. Milo ends up being covered in one of those colorful graffiti tags. Pointing it out for the second time earlier was completely pointless. Then we get to the most annoying character in the whole movie. What you need to know is that this character learned how to speak English by watching television from the 60s.
They were tracking me? I was talking to Gribble.
I just realized that Milo's dialogue isn't much better. For the whole movie, all he does is state the fucking obvious. That's 90% of his dialogue when he gets to Mars. We have a character who tells us only what we already should know. A character with outdated slang from the 80s, and a character with outdated slang from the 60s. When you use outdated slang by accident, it's awkward and annoying. When you do it on purpose, it's awkward and annoying. That's why you have characters use outdated slang, to be awkward and annoying. This is not endearing in the slightest. The alien's name is Key, and for some reason she's dressed like Lara Croft.
Okay, you're from Earth, so you must know. What do you turn on? What do you drop out of?
That's English. Where did you learn English?
If that's your idea of English, I must be the fucking Martian here.
Wait, no, but I saw inside her headspace. You said my life would be so much better if I didn't have a mom at all.
And the Martians kidnapped her because she instills obedience. And they're still gonna kill her for that obedience that they just found out doesn't exist. The moral you are trying to teach is not compatible with this story. We fit the moral to the story, not the other way around. Or this is what you get. Once again, Milo begins trying to describe his mother's role. He does it like a 4-year-old.
She looks after me and she tells me what to do. She takes me to Disneyland and
I wonder what he'd be saying if his mother was the one working while his father did all of this, and she still got kidnapped. If you remember correctly, Milo has a father that's still in his life that he's just seemed to have forgotten in this life-changing endeavor.
and she hugs me and she loves me.
That line belongs more to an older man who figured out why the girl at the coffee shop has always been there for him. Not a kid about his parent who is there in his life every single day. Like I said, he's acting 5 years younger than he actually is. Maybe I am playing a David Cage game. You know, where a 10-year-old kid runs away from his parents because he wants a balloon from a cloud, and then decides to run across a busy street for no good reason. Milo runs down a hall and jumps down a trash chute. Haven't we already seen this? Cut! Cut! Hey, I said cut! The scene is over! You can move to the next one! Milo finds out that the Martians have captured Gribble. This would actually be a surprise if they didn't show this earlier. What is it with this movie restating shit? Is it just to fill out the runtime? Is there really that little substance that everything needs to be said twice? If we weren't shown this earlier, we could have been left in suspense, because Key told Milo that there was a tracking device on him that let him figure out where Gribble was. Restating information like this kills tension. Milo finds a time capsule with a bunch of Gribble's things. He was originally known as George Ribble, and was in the same position that Milo is in now. So, tell me, Gribble, I know you're in a hard spot right now, but can you please explain to me this? Did being chased down by Martians make you completely forget and not care about them killing your mother, like what you planned for Milo? For how often they restate information, they sure let a lot of little oversights like that slip through the cracks. Milo saves a pet thing that only got 2 minutes of screen time, and it shows that Gribble has been taken off to a firing squad. Here's my point. If Milo knows what something like a firing squad is, he's mature enough to be a lot quicker to the punch when it comes to something like the concept of love. There's having a hard time explaining it, and then there's being emotionally stupid. This movie has no concept of tension. When Gribble is lined up for the firing squad, he's babbling like an idiot. Yes, it's in character, but it's not being used to cultivate the right emotion. Milo comes in out of nowhere because he easily knew how to get to the firing squad with almost no prior knowledge of the Martian facilities, and saves Gribble. Okay, what the holy fuck? Milo has a translator now! And he's in the scene! I can't believe I am saying this, but conveying things to your audience is not optional. Because a gun lands in Key's hand, she's told to pick her nose with it. Look, either you're expecting your audience to be stupid enough to believe that Milo is a believable 10-year-old child, or smart enough to understand what the fuck these guys are talking about without subtitles. There's also discrepancies about Milo's intelligence. He's not smart enough to understand that his mother loves him without babbling like an idiot, but he's smart enough to shoot a hole in the ground under intense pressure, finding the one way to save their asses from this situation. Milo is just whatever the plot needs him to be. He is not a character. He is a walking plot device. I mean, take his zombie fascination from the beginning of the movie. That completely dropped when he got to Mars. And if you're saying that he can't really focus on that during the situation, that wouldn't explain how Gribble still talks about his interests under pressure. And for the record, Gribble is a better written child character than Milo. I don't know how that mistake is even possible. So they all fall into the trash chute. Hey, haven't we seen this before? I think my DVR broke and the movie reset itself. Because the males are all really fun-loving, the females apparently throw them down the garbage chute. Yes, the movie explicitly states this. I'm not inferring anything. Milo and Gribble escape into a sewer that leads them into a river. I guess that Mars rover didn't find all of this water that was directly beneath it. Not very eco-friendly Martians, are they, though? When they end up in a very colorful cave, Milo gets Gribble out of his cuffs.
Maniac! These things are dangerous! Tried to blow up some trash once with one of these, almost took my foot off. Yes!
And then Milo tells Gribble his real name to get him to actually do something. I just realized, so far, the only thing that Gribble has done, plot relevant, is gotten Milo to go down the trash chute for the first time. And possibly the third time. Other than that, he got Milo to run around pointlessly for 10 minutes and then got kidnapped. Apparently, Gribble was a good kid. He did everything that he was told.
Turns out that's exactly why they chose her. Because of me. What kind of message is that to send to a little kid, huh?
Are you absolutely 100% sure that this is not a satire of a cheesy, stupid science fiction B-movie? No, it's not. There's too much emotional manipulation for this to be a satire. Repeat after me. What I'm doing is wrong. I know it's wrong, but I'm gonna do it anyway. You know that your movie is giving a bad message, and you're going to teach it anyway. And I don't care about the science fiction stuff, because the moral that we're actually supposed to relate to is arguably worse. Doesn't matter how you slice it, the message is sent, bad things happen when you listen to your parents. Granted, in reality that is sometimes the case, unfortunately, but not enough to have a message this blatant about it, and not anywhere close to this situation. These parents are telling their kids to do chores or clean up their mess, not abusing them or anything like that. Bottom line, Gribble pretty much tells us the plot of the movie because it doesn't have enough filler already. Basically, if we're going through the whole video game analogy, Gribble got the bad ending. And all of this time, he was trying to stop Milo from trying to rescue his. What I'm saying is that I don't know what this character's motivations are.
I'll never be able to tell her I loved her.
Never be able to tell her you love her? What do you mean?
Come on, man, don't make me give up on humanity. Put two and two together! Key finds them and Gribble tries running away. Key explains herself with outdated 60s slang. And then they run to try to find Milo's mother.
This is the way out.
Is there gonna be a lot of running?
Probably, considering up that takes only half the goddamn movie! No, seriously, half of this movie is just the characters running around! They find a portrait of a happy, normal family, and that's the way it's supposed to be. I will say that the moral of this movie is going for has good ideas and is very optimistic, but it's executed so poorly that it's damn near offensive. Key tells them all that they need to go back to the prison to get to an escape silo, and Key is able to communicate with this because 60s sitcoms used every single word in the English language. And this tells me that Milo was closer to his goal when the movie started than here.
Yes, but, Isn't the trail thousands of feet above us?
1,032.
Huh, so almost every country on Earth uses the metric system, but Martians use the English one. Who knew? Look, if you're gonna come up with your own damn language, I'm going to continually hold you to the same standard. Key uses tranquilizers to knock some guards out. Gribble turns off the security cameras and then frees the male prisoners. We see that the new crop of male Martian babies are being sent down below, but they have no one to take care of them anymore. Guess what happens? No guess. Gribble tells the male Martians to jump down the fucking garbage chute. What the hell is with this movie and the goddamn garbage chute? Do you really have that few ideas of how to get from point A to point B? Milo eventually, and I mean eventually, makes it to the surface with very little time left. So while Milo's mother is about to die, the movie shifts its focus to Key and Gribble flirting.
Now that I think about it, key is like a perfect word to start an engine because...
I'm halfway expecting to hear an explosion in the background, and this entire movie to be just one elaborate joke. This is not what you should be focusing on during the climax of the movie. So Milo ends up tripping over the Mars rover that is in clear sight of the sunrise laser thing. The thing that we programmed to explore and analyze Mars apparently isn't seeing what's right in front of it. Why am I complaining? Because it shoots all logic of this movie out the fucking window. Because it shows that the creators did absolutely no research. Because Milo could have easily tripped over a rock. Because a character tripping when they need to run is an overdone cliche. Take your pick.
What dummy left out there?
Oh, I don't know, the NASA scientists that spent millions of dollars to learn about what the fuck's on Mars. Milo almost falls into a crevice, and he can't communicate with anyone. God, does this movie really need that much padding? These direct-to-DVD dealies usually only need to be about an hour. Oh yeah, someone thought this was good enough to be put in theaters. I weep for that man's job. Milo is about to fall in the hole, but Gribble comes out of nowhere and saves him. Then he uses a jetpack that came out of nowhere. This gets him spotted by the Martians he said would not spot them. Milo and Gribble make it, but it seems like breaking Milo's mom off the table isn't going to be easy. They still didn't give her anesthetic. They're about to kill her, it pretty much requires her being asleep, but they didn't give her any anesthetic, and she's still sleeping. What the hell? She must be the deepest sleeper in the fucking galaxy. Gribble decides to hurt himself, getting Key to exclaim his name. This was the code word to activate the rocket that is supposed to take Milo home. Milo saves his mother, shit blows up, and the male Martians escape through the garbage chutes. This causes chaos, and then we have a bunch of naked alien babies running around wreaking havoc. Who comes up with this stuff?
Did you just pull me out of bed?
Awesome line read there. No, really. That was the funniest thing in this whole damn movie. As Milo and his mother are running to the ship, I noticed the music from this sounds like it's ripped straight from Atlantis or Treasure Planet. Much better movies to come out of Disney. The supervisor comes out and shoots at Milo. Since Gribble tackles her, it only hits Milo's foot. Okay. Stop. Earlier, Gribble explicitly states that one of these lasers nearly tore off his foot. And that's when he was shooting garbage from a distance. He seemed fairly serious about it too. Plain and simple, if you want this laser to hit Milo's foot, he shouldn't have a foot anymore. Then we get that scene. You know the one where everything is quiet to let the emotions sink in or something. The movie wants me to feel emotion for a soulless, stupid puppet with a magic foot. This silence scene is becoming incredibly, incredibly pretentious, if it's not already. And this movie is not one that should be pretentious. Milo's mother gives him her helmet. The dipshit finally figured out what love really is. Look, for some reason, this doesn't resonate as strongly with me as something like Simba crying over Mufasa's death. Number one, Simba actually had a strong personality. Number two, you could easily see the connection between the two. This movie wasted so much time that it could have used for Milo to be talking about home memories, or maybe having flashbacks, or something that could show their lives together. Instead, we got him acting like an asshole and him running around. Number three, saving Milo's mother was the point of the movie. Disney may have a lot of sad moments in their movies, but they are never going to have a sad ending. At least not for the main characters. I know that Milo's mother is going to survive, and because she does, it's forcing emotions. I do not approve of forcing my emotions. The most insulting thing about this, though, is probably how Milo's mother survives. Gribble runs after her and figures out the exact place he dropped his mother's helmet on the barren Martian landscape after hiding for 25 fucking years. And after 25 years of being exposed to the elements on Mars, it still works just as intended. There's not a chip or a crack. It's just a bit dirty. And just a bit, not entirely dirty, so she could still see through it. Key drives like a dipshit, and everyone runs into the supervisor.
It's not over. You will surrender.
Why are you using a translator now? How are you using a translator now? I mean, back during the shooting squad, Milo apparently didn't have the translator anymore.
You cannot stop in this. This is the way it has always been.
I don't think that this is the kind of movie that should be talking about the dangers of following tradition when they become counterintuitive. This movie is not smart enough for that. Key shows them all a photo of the happy family.
We were not meant to be raised by machines. We were meant to be raised by families.
Yes, parents, you are horrible people for putting this DVD in and getting the television to raise your children instead. This movie is very preoccupied in throwing stones right now.
You fool! I saved you! Before any of you were even born, I realized we do not have time to raise hatchlings.
Because there is no feasible way anyone can raise children and have a job at the same time.
And the males? They never helped. Always dancing and playing.
Because if one of your parents does nothing but play games all day, they are doing their job as a parent 100% correctly. One thing this movie does not seem to understand is that not everyone has the luxury of having two parents. And it knows that this is a misstep. Whether or not the situation they propose is ideal is situational as well. There are some families in such a position where both parents have to work to support the family. This movie came out in 2011. The economy was jacked back then, and it still kind of is. Would a family be happier if only one parent was working but they were much poorer as a result? I don't know. It's not my call. And it's not this movie's call either. It's for individual people and individual families to figure out for themselves. In fact, I'm pretty sure they realized how poorly they constructed the moral of this movie. The first time that I watched this movie until the end, I thought that Milo's mother was a single parent. They mention his father once at the beginning, and we see him very briefly at the end. I'm pretty sure that in previous drafts, Milo's mother was a single mother. Gribble had a single mother, and they run through the exact same plot. And Milo does not mention his father once during this whole endeavor. I know it's not exactly priority, but during something this intense, he should mention his father at some point. You know, if he was talking about the good times with his family. Especially if this movie is espousing the value that having two parents is the absolute only way to raise a child. I'm not saying that you should go out of your way to be a single parent. That's stupid. Ideally, you should find a partner that you're happy with and start having kids then. But life isn't ideal. Yeah, you can usually let Disney slide with this kind of stuff, but they're dealing with an adult issue here. I don't understand why a kid's movie is teaching a moral about parenting. I really don't. Imagine if you're a kid watching this being raised by a single mother because his birth father is a crackhead. There is no one-size-fits-all way to raise a family, because each family and each family situation is different, and making blanket statements like this movie does can come across as incredibly offensive. Goddamn this movie. Everything about it just fails. Looking past the animation, the plot is stupid and nonsensical. The characters are either horrible, stupid, annoying, or flat. I don't even want to talk about this one anymore. On the flip side, join me next time when I talk about overpopulation and a television show that's trying to give parenting advice to kids.
Here's a little something else I've been working on, Little Ellen. I'll show you a clip.
Squeeze your tushy tight, get on your tippy toes, and walk and squeeze around the room.
Ellen DeGeneres. What could be said about her? Not even 2 years ago, she was one of the most beloved people in Hollywood, an outspoken member of the LGBT community and a defender of their rights. She was the host of one of the highest-rated talk shows in the business, an actress loved for her portrayal as Dory in the Finding Nemo movies. Now, she's probably the celebrity who has burned through goodwill faster than any other not convicted with a crime. Controversies about her and her show exploded over the course of the pandemic years. We got stories about how she offered a possibly pregnant Mariah Carey alcohol so that she personally could break the story about a celebrity being pregnant before the woman was even ready to do so.
People are saying that that you're pregnant. There's rumors.
Don't discuss that.
All right. Well, you don't have to.
No,
answer.
that's okay. No, honestly,
you don't have to answer me.
I...
Let's just toast with champagne and decide. Wait. Let's toast to you not being pregnant. If you're not pregnant, then we should.
Oh my goodness.
You're pregnant. You're pregnant.
No,
you are pregnant.
There were also more minor things, like yelling at a translate to translate faster, shaming audience members who didn't follow instructions. And if all of this was in front of the camera, you could only wonder what was going on behind the camera. Well, you actually didn't have to wonder for too long. In July of 2020, BuzzFeed ran a story involving several whistleblowers revealing that Ellen was a toxic person and a toxic workplace. Things like telling employees not to make eye contact with her were alleged. Instances of racism were alleged. It was alleged that every day she picked someone new to really, really hate. Just a whole lot of allegations. And throughout all of this, Ellen only really had two defenders. One was all of her celebrity friends that started bombing their own reputation in doing so. And the other was news organizations that didn't have a reputation to begin with. In doing research for this particular video, a lot of the news articles tried to downplay the situation about Ellen. And even once they gave a fair look at the controversy, did go into her long history and all of her great accomplishments in the past. However, despite all of this, her talk show was not able to survive the controversy, and it will be coming to an end after its 19th season later this year. Now, you may be wondering why I'm talking about this. If you've been on the internet at all in the past year, and let's be honest, you have, not hearing about the Ellen scandal is borderline impossible. There were so many videos talking about every little minutia of this controversy. The Right Opinion made a video over an hour long. You know all of this. What you don't know is that there was an Ellen DeGeneres cartoon that started airing last year. No, I'm not kidding, this is Little Ellen.
Oh, that's me.
I have many questions. Actually, I have just one question, but it's a big one.
Whose idea was this?
Yeah, that's the one. So, Ellen's career Hindenburged in 2020. This show came out in 2021. To be fair, it was in production since 2019, but this would be like releasing the Michael Jackson Experience video game a month after Finding Neverland. Or announcing a reboot of Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids now. Which reminds me about that, little title. So the show is called Little Ellen. It's a preschool show. Immediately your mind has gone to Little Bill. If you don't know, Little Bill was a preschool show, made by Bill Cosby, that aired at the tail end of the 90s. Yeah, look forward to the Nicorama episode about that one. If there's something that should be mentioned about Bill Cosby at this point, it's that he's,
I want the big one. Give me the big one. Why do you want the big one? He'll stop the drafts all winter, and in the summer he can give me shade.
He's a controversial figure. So even before I watched the show, like even if we were to put out Ellen's entire controversy, like let's pretend that everything there is still under NDA right now, a celebrity should not be naming their cartoon Little Anything. Cosby himself burned that bridge like no one's business. Doesn't matter if it's Little Ellen, Little Baldwin, Little Keanu, or Little Al. Mine goes straight to Little Cosby. I mean Little Bill. I get that show is old at this point and the target audience of preschoolers might not, get the problem, but Little Bill wasn't this obscure underground cartoon that no one had ever heard of. Like, I have to assume, and I actually hope that this is true, that the people who were making the show were legit trying to prank Ellen, because I don't want to believe that someone made this mistake by accident. Now that that's out of the way, let me get something else off my chest. What the fuck are these hell demons? This show looks like a Baby Hazel Flash game ate a Finger Family video and threw it up into a pile of glitter!
The eyes! The fucking eyes!
Funny story, I heard a rumor that Ellen's staff is forced to watch the show on their first day, so they internalize not to make eye contact with her. This show has one of the worst art directions that I have ever seen. It's not as bad as Problem Solvers, but second place is still admirable. Where do I even begin here? As I stare into the abyss also stares into me. It makes me understand the meaningless in my own life. We are all destined to fall one by one like September leaves, cast aside and forgotten in the cold December snow. Such evil cannot be stopped, only appreciated. What was I just saying? I think I lost myself there. So this show is so ugly it makes me want to set myself on fire. Let's start with the most basic of problems here. The show takes after a picture book style. This is because Little Ellen is also a picture book. Yeah, here's something else you might not know. Celebrities almost universally make terrible children's books. Jimmy Fallon, LeBron James, Ricky Martin, Barack Obama, Kelly Clarkson, even Pharrell Williams of all people. You know, who was on the song Blurred Lines. The song that was so awful and offensive it probably single-handedly invented modern-day political correctness. He wrote a children's book. And I know the obvious joke you're thinking of here, but you're wrong. I made my bad children's book before I got famous, so there. Anyway, while a show inspired by a children's book art style isn't inherently a bad idea, it is inherently a bad idea, and this cartoon is a pretty good showcase as of why. The most fundamental problem here is that none of the characters have outlines. For a picture book where an artist can frame every single part of every single image, it works fine. The problems start when the things in the drawing start moving around. Here's the biggest problem. Ellen herself is a light, white-skinned character, so when she does something like stand in front of a white-colored wall, or hell, even stand outside, she disappears.
I'm gone!
Because none of the characters in the show have any outlines, they often become amorphous blobs. Hell, half of the time Ellen's mouth disappears on her face because it's not dark enough. The show, more often than not, is visual nonsense. The decision to not have outlines in a show is not impossible to make work, but it is a challenge. And that's not something that could or should have been done with a show that's just trying to be a cheap cash-in like this one is. Probably the most famous show that foregoes outlines is Samurai Jack. Not having outlines works there because the characters are drawn in such a way where the outlines aren't really needed. Samurai Jack has this strong understanding of color. Even in a winter scene where this white character wearing a white robe is standing in a field of snow, like the Three Blind Archers episode, you know exactly where Jack is and where he is standing. His hat and his sword, which are different colors, help define him. But even beyond that, his robe is made of a gray or white, so he's not the same color as the snow. There are also cinematic tricks to help him stand out. But you don't even need to go that far. Another show that abandons outlines is, once again, Little Bill. In that show, Bill's shirt is brightly colored, and it uses colors that aren't used in too much else in the show. And even the dark backgrounds in that show do not match Bill's skin tone. So, as a result, he never gets lost in the scene, while Ellen continually does. Honestly, maybe I should give Problem Solver some credit, because I did know who and what was on the screen. This is a problem that I have never seen in any other cartoon in the almost 9 years that I've been doing this. Hell, in the almost 30 years I've been watching cartoons. And I know it's a moot point by now, but the actual design of the characters is just so uncanny.
Aye, 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 your eyes hypnotize, but why, do you stay by my side? Whoa, 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 why don't you go? So, whoa, whoa, I'd be alone.
Like, there's no other way to say this. These characters look like bad clip art. Like something you'd buy off a scam website in 1998.
PJ!
And the audio ain't much better. I will reiterate, this is a preschool show. With voice acting in preschool shows, the bar is really low. But then you remember that Sophia the First and Arthur exist. And then you realize that there's absolutely no excuse for this. The voice actors try to mimic actually little kids, and that's a problem because it doesn't work. I really could just go on and on about the voice acting, but sometimes it's better to just listen to it.
What do you need? I have Sunny's, tape dispenser, fresh sweet pepper.
So that's what happens with Patrick Starr's sister he said he didn't have. Also, you might want to return that backpack to Dora. I think she needs it.
You've been having so much fun with her. I didn't think you wanted to play with me.
Fun fact, Ellen's mother was a speech therapist. Her character should not sound like this! Complaining about the voice acting, to be completely honest with you though, is a waste of time because we absolutely have to talk about the singing.
If you just think of our favorite times, it might help with the battle, Charlie.
Honestly, it kinda rocked my world learning that there was someone that Cats 2019 actually rejected.
I gotta work harder on these songs.
What? No, they're great. I have no idea what you're talking about.
And I'll eat the very best beignets of all time, because at festival, nothing goes wrong.
Every single episode has at least one song, and I only stuck an ice pick in my ear 3 times, in 10 episodes. I hear it in mono now, and life is just wonderful. We also have to talk about the theme song, because it is incredibly unique. I mean, I wouldn't call it good. Hell, I don't even know if I would call it bad. But it's the first theme song that I've ever heard that I actually didn't know was the show's theme song the first time that I watched it. The theme song failed to stand out in any way whatsoever to the rest of the show, and that is an impressive failure. So far, I've only really talked about aesthetics. I'm pretty sure you want to know what the show is really about. I mean, someone as well-lived as Ellen probably has plenty to teach the next generation. Like standing up for yourself, fighting for equal rights, gaslighting, being a toxic shithole of a person. Let's watch the trailer.
The best way to have fun is to be yourself no matter what.
Wait, isn't that what got Ellen canceled? Okay, I wasn't too sure about this before, but this is clearly some pissed off employees trying to dunk on an abusive boss. Maybe Amazon has a better, more accurate description of what we're in for. 7-year-old Ellen DeGenerate, sorry about that slip of the tongue. 7-year-old Ellen DeGeneres is a kid with a big heart, humor, and imagination. Wow, what some people lose in the aging process is just truly tragic. Little Ellen has a little bit for everyone. You hear that, everyone? You can't bully me for shitting on a preschool show. It's for everyone. Amazon said so. To be absolutely fair, though, this is not a bad premise. Let's do some math here. Ellen DeGeneres was born in 1958. At 7 years old, it would have been 1965. Now, the 1960s were a tumultuous time, filled with social unrest, protesting, and just a ton of national tragedy here in the United States. I mean, there was the Kennedy assassination, most people know that, but it also had another Kennedy assassination, Robert Kennedy. There was also the Martin Luther King assassination. Even the guy who assassinated JFK got assassinated. There were the Stonewall riots. The Cold War's proxy battles fueled much of the chaos of the 60s, with Vietnam going through all of it. Bay of Pigs invasion was another big thing. But I mean, there was also times to be excited too, like with the moon landing or Woodstock. The 1960s were such a different world from today, but a talented individual could certainly craft stories and teach lessons to the new generation, and maybe even make some parallels to a lot of the events that even very young children are seeing today. I mean, you'd have to try and relate to the kids of today, but that can't be too hard, now can it?
Do you know what this means? Bianca and Sebastian are relationship goals?
I apologize if this video is a few days later than intended. I had to set my computer on fire and perform an exorcism. Gen Z slang in cartoons is something that's really beginning to annoy me. Actually, to be honest, it's not just the slang. It's kind of just the way that characters talk in cartoons now. Like, their tone of voice. Like, imagine someone as hyper as Mabel be way more self-assured than they have any right to be. That's like the main character in every cartoon now. To be fair, maybe I'm just getting old. For instance, my mother was born before 1983. Apparently, Ellen's mother wasn't. And as we all know, I am much older than Ellen DeGeneres. Yeah, you probably don't know this, but I'm like 65 or something. You wanna know what the show has to do with the real-life Ellen DeGeneres? Nothing. Okay. It has one thing to do with the real-life Ellen DeGeneres. And only one thing. Ellen grew up in New Orleans, and the show takes place in New Orleans. And if you're wondering, this character is explicitly referred to as Ellen DeGeneres in all the advertising materials and in the show itself. Speaking of which, Little Ellen is making me reference Little Bill more times than I'm comfortable with. One thing to note with that show is the titular Little Bill isn't actually Little Bill Cosby. His full name is actually Bill Glover. He is not the same character as the real Bill Cosby. But no, Little Ellen is Little Ellen DeGeneres, growing up at a time with skate parks and 80s nostalgia and
relationship goals?
A concept of someone who grew up in the 60s, especially with the life that Ellen led. That is a powerful concept, and it is a shame that it was wasted here. Yeah, I get it. It's a preschool show. Look, if Arthur can do LGBT things and talk about 9/11, I'm not asking for too much. Mr. Rogers did this kind of stuff all the time. To be honest with you though, I'm kind of surprised that nothing like that is anywhere in this show. If for no other reason than brownie points. I mean, Ellen in the show wears a rainbow shirt, but there's, I know what you're thinking, but they're cousins. And, yeah, that's an awful lot of close contact for cousins.
Look who's finally come out of the closet. What were you doing in there?
I don't know if now is the best time to mention that every single episode starts with Ellen talking to herself in the bathroom for no reason. Alright, here's where things get a little bit ridiculous. Ellen had a brother that is not in the show, but she didn't have a cousin that is in the show. You can name the show Little Susie and it wouldn't be any different. I have no idea why Ellen's name is even on this. It's not about her or her life. Even the character that is Ellen, you could probably get away with using that exact likeness without being taken to court or anything. I'd say that this show was just a cheap way to make money, but you didn't even hear about the show until I brought it up. The shit that I had to go through to figure out this existed, I don't even want to get into. You really think that this is bringing any attention to HBO Max? So the characters are all one-dimensional. Ellen's grandmother is just weird for the sake of it. You know, it's the quirky grandmother that you've seen 1,000 times by now. Freckle likes music. That's where his story begins and ends, and he won't be mentioned again for the rest of the video. Becky, though, Becky is the annoying one. Like, there really is nothing more to go on there. No one in the show has a personality. I mean, there's a lot of imagination sequences, like this is trying to be Doug or something. This show pales in comparison to Doug. It wishes it could be Doug. Every single joke is telegraphed.
You have a cat lick too. I guess it's called a cat lick for you. See what I did there?
Actually, I take that back. Everything is telegraphed in this show.
I know this has never worked in any movie we have ever seen, but how about the old three kids in a trench coat disguise?
What the fuck? And every single episode has more or less the same plot. You wanna know what the show is about?
It's okay to feel sad sometimes.
Like, I'm not even really joking. That's literally the plot of episode 2. No, that is literally the plot. Ellen's cat is feeling sad, so they learn when someone is sad, the best thing to do is just leave that person alone. You see, if Ellen was actually involved in the show, the moral would probably be if someone was sad, is your obligation as an employee to cheer her up. But like I said, she had very little to actually do with this scam. So many of these episodes is about learning that sometimes things don't go as planned, and then throughout the episode, they learn that sometimes bad things happen and you need to accept it. And then every single time, I mean it, every single time, when they do accept it, every ending is all like, you won the prize! You're going to be rich! All of the good stuff you wanted to happen is happening! Seriously, episode 1, Ellen wants to go to some festival, but every single thing she wants to do either gets cancelled or interrupted or something gets in the way. Then, she finally accepts that things aren't going so well. Then she gets all the stuff she wanted! Actually, she gets better than what she wanted. They get to go on the stage with the celebrity they wanted to watch and get backstage passes for. Episode 5, the adults are having an adults-only game night. The kids try to join them until they realize they can't. They accept that they can't. And then the adults decide to join them and have fun with them, so they get what they want. I repeat, it's like every single episode. You ever watch that Hey Arnold episode, The List, where Arnold tries to do all of these exciting things on a Saturday, and they don't work out in the end? It's basically watching that episode for 10 times in a row. Except that episode works because all of the good stuff just doesn't magically fall into Arnold's lap at the end. I mean, there's the Halloween episode. Ellen is terrified of everything. She never faces her fears once, like her friends do. And then towards the end, her grandmother's all,
You three spent all day trick-or-treating and facing your fears, and you never gave up, even when you thought things got too spooky.
That episode, by the way, is also about how being 7 years old is enough to go trick-or-treating on your own, in a big city, like New Orleans. And you know, maybe if this show took place in the 1960s, that would be much more believable. But in 2021, no. Episode 4 is a jealousy story. I don't think I need to continue after that. Like, the really, really sad part here is that this show is abysmal. But not only do I not know if it's gonna make my top 10 worst of the decade, I don't even know if it's gonna make the top 10 worst cartoons of 2021. Like, last year just shot out awful show after awful show. You got what? Centaur World and The Ghost and Molly McGee. And between that, you got Rick and Morty going down the drain, Q-Force, High Guardian Spice, Masters of the Universe, Devil May Care, Santa Inc., Teenage Euthanasia, The Prince, and so many reboots and spin-offs. Flintstones, Yogi Bear, The Smurfs again, Alvin and the Chipmunk again, 2 SpongeBob, Tom and Jerry again, even Johnny Test of all things. With all of the just shit flying around, no wonder people didn't pick up on this one. I suppose this is my way of saying that I got a lot of catching up to do. 2021 was probably one of the worst years for animation of all time, and it's gonna keep me working for a very, very long time. Well, this one has been a long time coming. I've wanted to review an episode of My Gym Partner's a Monkey for years now. It was actually going to be in season 2 of Animated Atrocity. What season are we on now? 6? Yeah, it took some time finding footage of the show. And then other bigger projects kept getting in the way. It happens. But now, it is finally time to give this show its just dues. My Gym Partner's a Monkey was one of those cartoons that started airing on Cartoon Network in the mid-2000s. That was so awful, it made it seem like airing live-action shows on the Cartoon Network was the wave of the future. These were shows like Squirrel Boy, or the Cramp Twins.
Can it, Bean Breath?
This one, though, watching it again, it might be the worst out of all of them. Yeah, I know that I put Cramp Twins on the list, but I've been wrong before. I've really got to make the first list there. When I made that list, I did not remember this show being this bad. But no, it's bad. Although, me remembering it more fondly, doesn't surprise me. A lot of people remember the show fondly, and a lot of people had to have liked it when it first aired. It had 4 seasons, 100 episodes. On one hand, it was nominated for 4 Annie Awards, and it even won an Emmy for an Outstanding Individual Achievement in Animation. I mean, yeah, this show was quite the achievement. I'll give them that, if we're very, very loose with achievement. But between this, nominating Dear Vikings, and awarding Fanboy and Chum Chum, are the Emmys like the Golden Raspberry Awards and they just never told anyone? It seems like they always nominate the worst, stupidest trash. On one hand, the show did a lot to look professional. The animation can be quite expressive, and it has some big-name voice actors. Tom Kenny was even one of the leading characters, Jake. On the other hand, this is probably one of Tom Kenny's worst performances. I do not like Jake's voice at all. It gets really grating fast. Although that might be just because I don't like his character, and that can ingrain you not liking the particular voice. The show won an Emmy, and yet it has an episode where one of the characters is eating bat droppings for 11 minutes. Looking back on the show, everything about it is terrible. It's not mediocre like The Buzz on Maggie. It's not forgettable like Squirrel Boy. My Gym Partner's a Monkey is annoying. It's gross. It's poorly made. It's aggravating, and it has next to no reason to exist. I can't think of a single positive aspect of this show. It even goes down to the title, My Gym Partner's a Monkey. Well, yes, Jake is Adam's gym partner. Very few episodes are about them being in gym. The show is about Jake going to an animal school, and Jake is with him in every single class. A more appropriate title is My Classmate is a Monkey, which was actually the title in several other languages. It got to the point where at one point they even made a joke about how unfitting the title is in one of the episodes. Oh, and how about that theme song?
My gym partner is a monkey. Monkey, monkey, monkey. My gym partner is a monkey. Monkey, monkey, monkey.
The first thing that you see in every single episode. If it's not the rapidly changing colors that give you a seizure, it's clearly the singing. It sounds awful. Not helping is the random shouting of monkey over and over again. Please tell me how that sets it apart from Camp Lazlo, Curious George, The Wild Thornberrys had a primate in it, Super Robot Monkey Team, and the less said about rocket monkeys the better. I mean, if you just Google monkey cartoon series, you're gonna find that monkeys in a cartoon is nothing special. Yes, the show has a monkey in it, but because you told me this over and over again, now I want to shoot one.
I was gonna say next.
Oh, that's okay.
You know, that line might be funny if about 85% of the show's humor wasn't entirely butts. The theme song literally had Jake playing bongos with his butt. Then a minute later, you're going to show me this. There was an episode, and I'm not joking about this, called The Butt of Jake. It was about Jake being so obsessed with his butt that it was ruining his life and the lives of everyone around him. And then Jake inflated it with helium to the point where he eclipsed the sun. After that episode's second showing, it was pulled from airing for being too offensive, vulgar, and too butt-filled. And when the episode ends with about 50 monkey butts being waved in your face, I can believe it. What I'm saying is that this lyric couldn't be more out of place if it tried. I mean, maybe it's trying to be ironic or clever or something. It's clearly hypocritical humor, but that fails when it's just so blatantly, obviously wrong. It's more aggravating than funny. Any show that relies on butt humor as much as this one does clearly does not give a crap about comedy, and it has no room to tell someone that they can't say butt. I'm not complaining that the show is gross, although it is. I did not need to see Jake try to drink a soda through his ass. Wait, if you go to a school that might have donkeys, is calling someone an ass offensive? The butt jokes are easy, and every single time, it's always the same. Every single episode. It's just Jake showing his exposed rear, because we need to make 4-year-olds laugh. Every type of joke, no matter what type it is, has diminishing returns. The more that you use it, the less funny that it gets. And when we got 50 of the same type of jokes in 11 minutes, without anything else, it just gets tedious. But this show has even deeper fundamental problems. The show is about Adam Lyon transferring to a school for animals because of his last name, which is at least an interesting premise. I mean, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Last names like Wolf are pretty common, so I'd assume that this world has protocols for humans with last names similar to animals. One of the characters is a principal who's constantly afraid of getting sued, and he doesn't do anything to remedy this weird transfer situation, but whatever. Your premise is your freebie to do whatever. And it is a premise that can allow for some imaginative scenarios. You know, ones that don't involve butts. Tarzan archetype has been used for over a century now. So the show is about Adam Lyon going to Charles Darwin Middle School. Get it? Charles Darwin, because this show has a lot to do with evolution. I mean, yeah, Charles Darwin, he was a biologist, but that's not the first thing that I think of when I think animal school. These animals aren't hyper-evolved branches of animals. They're just normal animals that can talk. Wouldn't the Charles Darwin Middle School be a more appropriate name for the human school in this world? I mean, wouldn't you name the animal school after an animal of some kind? Whatever, I'm nitpicking. This is a show that you shouldn't take seriously. That might be a bit of a problem because this show has an episode with a swearing plot. Actually, no, that's a little bit light. The episode we're looking at today is called The A Word, and it's not about swearing. It's about slurs. Hold on to your hats, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be a bumpy ride. Duck and cover! There are some shows that you shouldn't take as seriously as others, I'll admit. You really shouldn't look into the intricate, detailed backstory of SpongeBob and how his world came to be. Ahem, ahem, ahem. It's bound to be confusing or disappointing, but there is a trade-off. A show that you're not supposed to take seriously can't take itself seriously. That was my main problem with The Return of Slade. It was teaching a moral that it wanted people to take seriously, and a show that frequently made fun of morals and hated the idea of cartoons teaching morals. What I'm saying is that it might be a bad idea to have a plot about a slur and a cartoon about school segregation, just putting it mildly. Of course, this episode isn't trying to be serious, it's just trying to tell a more humorous story, right?
That's it! Nice try, whoever you are!
It's just about a slur, that's all. It starts with Adam talking about how much of his best friend Jake is, and he goes on and on about it, and you already know what's going to happen for the entirety of the rest of the episode. Then a bull shark beats Adam up, and then this happens.
Oh, hey, didn't see you there.
Oh my god, it's become self-aware.
I was just thinking about you, and I was wondering if,
I don't like where this is going.
if you were thinking about me.
Yeah, I can't really think about anything but you at the moment. Oh no, that came out wrong. No, Bad Monkey, get away! So, after Jake tries to French the audience, Adam comes up and says that he was beaten by a bull shark. Then Jake proves what an A-word he actually is. Adam, you gotta stand up for yourself. Adam, what did you do to provoke him? Literal quotes from the episode. Seriously, now I know what the inspiration for Craig was from out of Jimmy's head.
I keep seeing cartoons, but like, not on TV, in real life. Whatever. What happened to you yesterday? You get hit by a train, then you like totally ditch me. Dude, I was in the hospital. It's always about you, isn't it?
In every episode, Jake is like this. In every single one. He's continually selfish and entirely ignorant of Adam. Yet the show continually insists these two are best friends. But no, every single episode, every single one, Jake is a jerk to everyone around him, especially Adam. Cartoon Network had such a warped idea of friendship in the mid-2000s. It's bizarre. Between Adam and Jake, Jimmy and Craig, Mac and Blue, what the hell did they think friendship was? I shouldn't have to tell you how hard this is to listen to if you've actually been bullied, considering that these are things that bullying victims actually do here in real life. And you wanna know what the best part is? This episode wants you to feel like Jake has the moral high ground, that he's up above it all. When Adam says that the shark went ape on him, which is the A word, Jake breaks down, and we're meant to sympathize him for the rest of the episode.
And he totally went ape on me! What did you just say?
I said Bull Sharkowski
Went ape on me.
Another thing I shouldn't have to say is that using slurs is wrong. The issue here is that the episode went out of its way to portray Jake as the most amoral, apathetic, victim-blaming A-word that they could, before Adam said that word. It's like asking you to feel sorry that Frollo fell off of Notre Dame, or that Ursula was being impaled. What I'm saying is that them trying to make me feel sorry at all for this monkey at any point is total bird murd. Not helping is that Adam said it by accident. Many times, in a scene that goes on forever. You know, I don't know why 11-minute episodes feel the need to just spend 2 minutes establishing one plot point. But while they're going on about this, I suppose we can talk about the overall presentation, since nothing else of relevance is happening. The areas and environments are nice and creative, and all the characters are fully competently designed. It looks a lot better than the other shows that aired at the same time, like Squirrel Boy that was just bland, or The Cramp Twins, which had bizarre stylistic choices, or Flapjack that went out of its way to try and be ugly. The main problem with the show isn't the drawing, it's the animation. Jake's facial expressions get wild and over the top a lot, and whenever that happens, it's really uncanny. I hate looking at it, and each time he does this, they need to add a monkey screech, which just makes it all the more painful. Speaking of pain, that's what this episode is about. That's what this show is about. Adam goes through a ton of pain in order to try and win Jake's friendship back. He does all kinds of stupid mierda to help his A-word stop being such a B-word. It's all moot though, because whether he does or doesn't, Jake will be a P-word until the day he dies. Adam gets his poster from the bull shark and then he gives it to Jake, without reading it. Because... Look, you could spend 8 years and $10 million in research, and no matter how far you look into the situation, you're never going to figure out why anyone, anywhere, thought that this would be an acceptable way to move the plot along. Speaking of that, it's amazing how there are plot holes in this 11-minute episode. One zebra kid gives Jake a shirt from his favorite musical artist, and Jake seems to really appreciate it. In the very next scene, Jake doesn't know if he's ever gonna find that best friend who really gets him. These scenes are literally back to back. How do you miss something like that? Also, this show has Ingrid and Lupe, the giraffe and the toucan. And there's no way to describe the relationship as anything but abusive. Ingrid seems so browbeaten and pushed around, and Lupe is extremely and annoyingly and aggressively domineering. Seriously, was that just some Cartoon Network executive's idea of what friendship was? One of the two friends beats the other around and the other one just takes it? Because that's terrible, and looking back, this was in so many Cartoon Network shows, like so many of them. At least in Nickelodeon, the two idiots were idiots together. But no, like every friendship in the mid-2000s in Cartoon Network was just portrayed like this. If there's any message to hate this show for, it's this kind of portrayal of friendship. It's not cartoonishly funny, it's demented. And you're never gonna guess how this episode ends either. Think of the biggest slap-in-the-face way to end this whole thing. And even then, that's nowhere near how insulting it actually is. Well, it turns out, according to Jake, going ape is a compliment.
I didn't know that going ape was an insult.
Insult? That's not an insult, Adam. It's the ultimate monkey compliment. If someone says that you've gone ape, it means you've gotten about as monkey as you can get.
Then why were you so mad at me?
Well, I was just jealous that you didn't say it to me. I mean, here I am, your best friend, and you lay that kind of sugar on a mean old bull shark instead? What's wrong with that picture, Adam?
I'd say don't think about that line too hard, but it's my job to think about things too hard. And the way that it's worded and the way that Jake talks, there's no other way around this. But it sounds like, with the way that Jake put it, going ape is heavily, romantic. Like, heavily romantic. Why do I keep referencing Bruno Mars in my videos? But yeah, the way that Jake talks about going ape makes it sound like they were doing it like they do it on the Discovery Channel. But if you can get past that, I'm not too sure if I can, but I'll try. This ending makes Jake seem even worse. I mean, Jake was a major elemental P word before, but keep in mind, that was after he was hurt, because a slur was being slung his way. If that was something that he was insulted with every single day, some of his behavior might be understandable. No, instead he's just jealous. He's petty and jealous. So he was acting like an A-word, because the A-word made him jealous. Great! You're awful! I hate you even more. Congratulations. As a twist, this also fails. If you recall, Adam said that the bull shark went ape on him. Adam said nothing about going ape on the bull shark. Sorry to go back to the romance thing, but this is like if your partner said that someone tried to hit on them, and then you hated on your partner for that, and you tried to get a new partner because somebody hit on them. Jake is awful. Jake is beyond awful. Where did I put the Cram Twins on my top 10 worst cartoons of the 2000s list? Number 4? Yeah, no, it's off. Now Jake is on it. Jake is number 4. Jake is the number 4 worst cartoon of the 2000s. Not the show, just Jake. The episode ends with Adam being rightfully miffed at Jake and no longer his best friend, and I'm going to pretend that this is the final episode because it's the only happy ending that this show could possibly have. Besides the principal getting sued for everything he has because he didn't transfer Adam back into the school he was supposed to be at. I did not remember this show being this awful, this disgusting, this poorly made, but it was. It was miserable. And this isn't the only episode that I watched for this review. This was one of the most miserable shows Cartoon Network ever put forward. Class of 5000 came out the same year, and this is the one that got to 100 episodes. We are truly living in the darkest timeline. Alright, we're starting off with a new decade. It's time to get into all the crazy, wacky, terrible cartoons of the 2020s. I hear people have some reactions to that Thundercats reboot, or maybe I could start cleaning up the latter half of the 2010s. There's a ton of cartoons that I missed that I really want to get to. Bless the Hearts, Neo Yokio, or even those stupid YouTube animated storytime videos.
It was irrational to treat me like this, just because I never heard of a potato before. After that, I left with dignity.
So what is this ultimate show we're starting the decade off with? Just hit me with the biggest thing you got.
Dumpty dum dum dum.
What? Sabrina the Teenage Witch. That had a cartoon. Oh yeah, that's right. I remember now. If you'll excuse me, this decade is going to start with one of those good old-fashioned episodes that I've got a bone to pick with. I guess you can't go wrong with the classics, right? We're gonna take a look at an episode that I absolutely hate and want to tear to shreds. If you don't know, Sabrina the Teenage Witch was a fairly popular show in the late 90s and early 2000s. I remember hearing about it a lot, but I don't remember watching the live-action version very often. Although I do know what it's about. It's right there in the title. Based on the Archie comics of all things, Sabrina was a girl who discovered that she had magical powers on her 16th birthday. It was definitely a show that played to the culture of the time. After Harry Potter came out, kid magicians were all the rage, and basically dominated the popular culture of my childhood. You couldn't walk 2 steps without tripping over a wand or a wizard, and Sabrina was pretty popular, at least until Charmed came out and was liked a whole lot better. Then again, Sabrina had an animated version and Charmed didn't. Alright, so here's an idea on how to ruin everything about a concept like Sabrina the Teenage Witch in a spin-off. First of all, make sure that Sabrina the Teenage Witch is no longer a teenager. In the show, she's now a 12-year-old, because who needs continuity? This is actually kind of important for both this episode, which is about becoming an adult, and the concept of the show as a whole. Believe it or not, I'm not entirely against making Sabrina a younger character. What I am annoyed with is how it affects the concept of the series as a whole. Because she's not 16 years old yet, she can't cast her own spells. This was a brilliant move in the executive room, I'm sure. Now, if Sabrina wants to cast spells, she either needs to be given them, or she needs to take them from her aunts. Why? Because this show is all about morality tales and life lessons. You know, like a kid's show should be about, in the minds of creatively sterile adults. Despite all of this, I remember watching the show quite a bit back in the day, actually. It wasn't something that I outright hated. I can remember that. But this is definitely a strange one, because besides this episode, I remember, nothing about the series as a whole. I even had to look up what the names of the characters were besides Sabrina herself. There are a few shows like that in my childhood. One that strikes my memory is Lloyd in Space. I remember watching that one all the time, but I remember, nothing about it. Except this one episode where there was, this alien that got to choose whether it was a boy or a girl that has a much different context today than it did back when it originally aired. And maybe we'll get to talk about that episode another day. As for this show, I want to say that it's not good. I mean, it's animated fine. The storytelling seems to work as it's supposed to. The characters are more than a bit bland, but they're not unlikable. No, what would make me call this show bad is probably the voice acting alone. Specifically Sabrina's voice actress.
A funny thing about that, look, Harvey, the video arcade!
The voice actress was 12 when the series came out. On some level, that's pretty admirable, actually getting a kid to voice a kid in the series of the same age. On another level, though, Sabrina has the voice that most shows would give a character specifically to show that they're a bad actor. Honestly, the voice actress was 12, but she sounds like she's 6. Her voice doesn't really have any emotion. And let me tell you, her lines don't help matters very much.
Go to a dopey kid movie like Wombat Wally? Thanks anyway, Harvey.
I don't want to be harsh, but this honestly reminds me of stuff on, Peppa Pig. But no, besides the bad voice acting, I wouldn't call Sabrina the Animated Series an awful show. I mean, I don't think that it's good by any means. It's no Disney classic, that's for sure. But no, if it wasn't for this specific episode, I probably wouldn't be talking about the show, ever. In full disclosure, this is going to be one of those proxy moral episodes. Remember my Nobody Doesn't Like TJ review? That episode came from a similar place. It wasn't so much the show overall that I wanted to talk about, but it was the moral that was taught time and time again in the exact same way. That episode, and every single other episode with that moral, tried to teach that you couldn't expect everyone to like you, which is a fair moral, but what virtually every single one of them taught was that it was just okay to dislike people for no reason, and be hostile to them for no reason. The episode we're reviewing today is called Anywhere But Here. It's in a similar position. The only difference is that this episode tackled it in an especially bad way, with very hackneyed writing. If you're wondering, the moral is this: adulthood sucks. You'll have the happiest life possible if you get hit by a bus by the time you turn 18, and die painfully in a hospital bed. No, I'm not exaggerating. Okay, I am exaggerating. That's not the moral that they teach, it's just the corollary prepackaged into the moral that you shouldn't hurry to grow up. It's a moral that I have never liked, even as I got older and became an adult. Especially as I got older and became an adult. I actually think that it's a worse moral to teach now than ever before. And to make matters worse, cartoons are still doing this in the exact same way. So while I am picking on this episode explicitly, my words are going to be mostly applicable to just about any other episode that says better cold than old. This episode starts off with a fairly big problem that doesn't bode well for the rest of the series. So, Sabrina the Animated Series is one of those cartoons that has 22-minute episodes, which was fairly unusual for the time period. Most cartoons, kids' cartoons at least, had 2 11-minute episodes for every half-hour block. Sabrina, though, is still written like it's an 11-minute cartoon, which means that every scene drags on, is filled with filler, and every other scene is redundant. Here's what I mean.
If you kids get lost...
Kids? And Zelda, I'm like 2 days away from being 13. Okay, so I'm 11 and a half months and 2 days away.
Get it? She's not a teenager in the series based on Sabrina the Teenage Witch. If you're a spin-off making changes, the last thing that you want to do is really point out those changes, especially if they harm the series as bad as this one does. Just a thought of mine. Then after the scene where Sabrina states that she doesn't want to be treated as a kid, we get a scene where Sabrina states that she doesn't want to be treated like a kid. Alright, maybe I'm old-fashioned. Like, I understand that certain rules of writing go in and out of vogue, but I do believe that each and every scene in the story, especially a short story, should be relevant to the plot and give us new information. Or, at least be funny.
I'm practically a teenager and I'm kind of tired of being treated like a little kid.
Yeah, well, I'm 44 and I'm really tired of dressing up like an idiot and making a fool of myself in public, okay? So just take the darn balloon, will you, kid?
Okay, that's a good one. You got the funny on this scene, I will give you that. That joke actually did make me laugh the first time I saw it. Unfortunately, it's like the only joke that really works in this entire episode. It's not that the show doesn't try to tell any jokes, it's just that it doesn't logic very well. So Act 1 of the episode is about how much it sucks to be a kid. Act 2 of the episode is about how much it sucks to be an adult. Act 3 is about the existential crisis that Sabrina has with the prospect that she'll never be happy as long as she lives. But we'll get to that when we get to that. One thing Sabrina does as a kid is try to use an arcade machine. Unfortunately, she can't do this because she's too young, and we see a bunch of elderly people about to use it. Then when Sabrina tries to use it as an adult, she's made fun of because she's too old to be using this. This is the kind of stuff that clearly tells me that this is a first draft effort, because this joke doesn't work on any level. It doesn't make sense. I've already told you the main problem with it. In the very first scene, old people are excited to play the game. In the second scene, Sabrina's made fun of because she's too old to be using the arcade game, and she's nowhere near elderly.
Hey, lady, aren't you too old to be playing this? It's kind of a teen game, for kids.
There is no consistency. Going beyond that, though, arcade systems don't really stop smaller kids from playing with them. I think you might be thinking of amusement parks, not arcades. You know what their you need to be this tall to ride kind of deal. In the first scene, there's a line of kids excited to ride this arcade game machine, and yet they need an adult to accompany them.
Sorry, kid. A lot of intense thrills here. I thought you were with an adult. You gotta have one with you to play this game.
The guy watching the arcade machine says that he thought Sabrina had an adult with her, but the guy is the only adult in the entire arcade. It's stated that you need an adult to ride with you on this machine to be allowed to go on, but Sabrina later gets on and made fun of it because it's stated to be a teen game. This might sound like nitpicking, and I definitely am harping on this one broken joke a lot, but it just goes to show you how sloppy this entire episode is. And I stand by this. If you really do care about a moral and want to teach it, if you think it's important to instill this wisdom in the kids, you need to try harder than this, because this kind of moral can come across as stupidly condescending towards the kids if you do it wrong. Oh yes, you should appreciate being a kid and not adult, says the adult. Oh yes, you should appreciate being poor and not rich, says the rich guy. I mean, you can make the argument, but you need to do a damn good job. And this episode does not do a good job. And it's like this with all the 5 things that Sabrina can't do because she's a kid.
Bummer. Guess you didn't see the can't buy without parental consent sticker.
Then she would have downloaded it off Napster like any other 12-year-old who wanted hardcore music in the year 2000. Oh, I'm sorry, you want to pretend that there's absolutely no advantages to being a kid whatsoever, and so we're just going to ignore how they're usually the first adopters of new technology, like the internet, cell phones, texting, and social media. Also, by the way, a court case has established that refusing to sell things like explicit music and violent video games towards minors is a violation of their free speech rights, which, we tend to forget that they actually do have.
I know what you screamed last summer.
I know what you screamed last summer? Age? 12, but what does that have to do with...
It's PG-13. You gotta be at least 13 or have an adult with you.
Everything is wrong with this scene. First of all, that's not how PG-13 movies work. That's how R-rated movies work. A person who's like 10 can see a PG-13 movie on their own, and most adults won't care. PG-13 stands for parental guidance, highly suggested. Keyword being suggested. And no, this isn't a nitpick. They could have easily done what The Weekenders did and make a fictional rating. More importantly though, Harvey and Sabrina look exactly the same age. It makes no sense why this woman would ask Sabrina her age and not Harvey. Secondly, she's so close to 13 that it doesn't really matter. I get that it's wrong to lie, but Sabrina, just say that you're 13. Is the movie theater really gonna ask for your birth certificates? Everything in the first part of this episode is just so fucking contrived. And yeah, that kinda pisses me off a bit. One of the prerequisites if you're trying to tell the kids how wonderful the childhood is and how much they should appreciate it is to maybe understand how childhood works. Like, in a very real sense. Like, in any way whatsoever. It's just a little thought that I had. Like I said, this episode is particularly bad with its moral. Not that this moral is ever really good. At least when most try to tell the story, they'll pick things that really do suck about childhood. Not being able to drive a car is one thing that's pretty common. And yeah, that's mentioned here, but it's only really mentioned. It's not enough. I mean, not having a disposable income is something that does affect most kids, and it does suck about being a kid. And yet, Sabrina is able to afford music, the arcade, a pizza shop, and the movies all in one run. This is a bad game that you're trying to play, and you don't even know the rules. Then Sabrina has a fantasy about what being an adult is like.
Welcome to the wonderful world of adults, where whatever you want is exactly what you get.
I'll be bringing this up later, but trust me, no kids in the 2020s older than 7 is actually gonna believe this. Unless they're like really fucking sheltered. Speaking of,
I've been looking all over for you. Hilda's waiting for us in the car. It's time to leave.
Leave? But Harvey and I still have about a zillion things we want to do here.
Sorry, Sabrina, but I'm the one who's driving, and now is when I need to leave.
but it sounds like you're the one who's driving and Zelda decided that it was time to leave. I'm very confused right now. Salem the cat is played by Norbit from the Angry Beavers, by the way. I bring this up because when you hear his voice, you're going to be continually distracted with, where have I heard this voice before? Anyway, Sabrina goes complaining about how much being a kid sucks, and Salem allows her to try to be an adult. He gives her a magic pocket watch that will allow her to be an adult for 24 hours.
You get the deal, right? Stay more than 24 hours, and it's permanent. No refunds, no returns.
Ahem. Are you fucking insane? Okay. This episode wants to go deep into the responsibilities of being an adult and shit. Alright, and in your adult sensibilities, you're just gonna give her this thing that has a chance, an easy chance, might I add, of irrevocably damaging her life. In the next episode, Salem is probably gonna pay for a trip to a tattoo parlor, and some gauges as well. Then maybe in the next episode, he'll buy her her first smoke, just so she can learn her lesson. I get it, it's a show about magic, and much of these shows about magical kids and spells rely on the parents being insanely irresponsible. Harry Potter's first year of school literally opened with Dumbledore saying that anyone who just walks in this random hallway you could just apparently accidentally enter would die a most gruesome death, and he just wasn't gonna care. At the same time though, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone wasn't about learning how hard it is to be a responsible adult. The square peg does not go in the round hole. So we talked about why being a kid doesn't suck, let's talk about why being an adult doesn't suck.
I'm grown up, which means I can do what I want all the time.
Oh, she's just a naive little bugger. Adults can't do that, except they can. Look, maybe I'm just especially fortunate or something, but it is totally possible to have a career that essentially lets you do whatever you want, whenever you want. That's my career. I'm not trying to brag or anything. Self-employment is a thing. And no, technically speaking, I can't literally do anything I want. If I don't work for like a year or even a week, I will probably kill any future prospects of this career. But on a daily basis, yeah, I could just do whatever the hell I want. I could take random days off if I feel like it. Yes, this is just my own personal experience, and my own experience doesn't fit every single other adult life. But this is actually a problem with this plot in particular. Adulthood isn't a one-size-fits-all dress that they pretend it to be. No two adulthoods are really the same. For example, Sabrina is married to Harvey and has kids. Not every single adult, even back in the late 90s and early 2000s, went down that road. There's nothing wrong with living the bachelor life or the bachelorette life all your life. And don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Same with not having kids. Actually, it might be better not having kids if you live in the kind of apartment that Sabrina does. Look, this episode was written by adults, right? Maybe one of them took a debate class at some point in their life and should be able to easily recognize a straw man argument. That's what these episodes just love to do. They tend to create the worst possible adulthood that they can think of and just throw their characters into it, stating that this is what all adulthood childhoods are like. It's like saying that every single big city is Detroit. It's just not true. And then there's stuff like this. Imagine, if you will, that Sabrina was doing this at the beginning of the episode, just causing general mischief. Do you think that Hilda and Zelda would just let her do it? No, they wouldn't. Hilda didn't even let Sabrina stay at the mall for an extra hour or whatever. You have parental authority now, use it! And there's another thing. Sabrina isn't the only adult in the room. I get her being surprised and blindsided, I guess, but then there's Harvey. He just does nothing throughout the entire episode. Honestly, if this really is the kind of person that he's gonna grow up into, it does not do good things for my perception for his character as a whole. Normally in a show like this, you want the boy and girl to get together eventually. You probably won't see it during the show's run, but you definitely want to see it after the show at some point. Kids Next Door is a good example of doing this thing right. But no, Harvey is a miserable piece of shit. I'd say that it reminds me of Oscar from Hey Arnold, but
I don't know what it is with me and jobs. Just can't seem to concentrate. I feel mixed up. Maybe you ought to whip up a little dinner, honey.
he is exactly Oscar from Hey Arnold, a deadbeat that'd be a mistake to marry. It's not that they make him outwardly awful, it's just that they don't give him any positive traits whatsoever. I cannot see why the hell Sabrina married this guy.
Uh-oh. I'm just a kid who looks like a grown-up. I don't know how to cook.
Okay, we start by opening up the package of ramen, and we put it in the bowl, like so. I should probably use a bigger bowl, but whatever. Then, we rip open the packet of flavoring. Just pour it in. Like so. This is difficult to do with a camera, I admit. Do not cook holding a camera. And then we add some water. Be careful not to fill the bowl up too much or it's just gonna spill everywhere. Place the bowl in any conventional microwave like this one. And make sure you set the time for 2 minutes. I know this is a challenging part, but you have to understand, 2 minutes. Once it is done, take a fork and then flip it over. Once again, very carefully, do not touch it or you will be burned. Now make very carefully sure to take the fork out, close the microwave door, and cook it again for about a minute to a minute and a half. Any more than that, then the bowl is going to start burning. Or it's going to be very, very hot to the touch. Thank you, thank you. This was Cooking with Mr. Enter. Please do not give me any applause. I learned how to do this when I was 8. Kids can't cook my ass. Have you seen the show on Amazon Prime? It's called Just Add Magic, and in my opinion, it's worth getting an Amazon Prime show. It, like Sabrina, is another show about magical kids. These 3 kids get a magical cookbook that teaches them how to do magic through various recipes. It's all about them cooking. Oh, and coincidentally, it had an episode about a character seeing their adult life, and it actually made a super interesting story about it. So, Sabrina takes her kids out for pizza, and I just realized, if I found out that I suddenly had not just 1 kid, but 3 of them, even now, never mind what I'd feel like if I was 12, I think I'd be having a bit more of a reaction than Sabrina is.
And guess what? Now we're going to the arcade. Hooray! What was I worried about? I've got this adult thing down cold.
Oh yeah, I have 3 kids now. 3 conscious people just splurted into my reality. But the other day, I left the red baseball cap in the washer. Now all my clothes are pink. That kind of stuff just happens, you know? Can't control it. You just deal with it as it comes along. One defense for this plot being so contrived that you could probably argue is that it's just a part of Salem's spell. Just giving Sabrina the worst aspects of being an adult, and basically forcing the world to shit on her as much as possible. You know, for the moral.
Tired of being a kid, huh? Doesn't have the brains to know when she has it made. You want to be an adult so bad? Fine.
And if that's the case, it would make the episode even worse. First of all, it would make Salem an outright asshole, especially with the catch that Sabrina could be stuck here. And 2, it really ruins the message. Because you could make anything look like shit if you only show off the negative aspects. You know, like they did with childhood, that thing they're really trying to sell and praise as the most wonderful thing ever and the best part of your life.
Don't you just hate it? When you're a kid, you can eat stuff like pizza as much as you want. Now it just goes straight into your hips.
You know that child obesity was a thing in the 2000s, right? I mean, fat kid was a character type back then. Even ignoring that, one size fits all again. Some adults do have screwed up metabolisms and can't eat garbage. Some adults get lucky. You want an example? I'm about 6 feet tall, exactly. I should weigh somewhere between 140 pounds and 177 pounds. I weigh 160, and I do eat garbage. I don't even want to admit how much pizza that I do eat. It's not that I've never had poor health effects from my life choices, but it's not like you're better off eating arsenic than McDonald's, as some people like to pretend. And if you think that I'm pulling reality ensues a little bit too much, Harvey eats pizza throughout this entire episode and has absolutely no negative health effects, because we just gotta screw on Sabrina as much as possible to tell her that she should be in constant fear of growing up. Look, I'm not trying to argue the opposite of this moral, that childhood sucks and adulthood is all sunshine and rainbows. I will say, I have problems that I could never have imagined that I'd have as a kid. But at the same time, because I am an adult, I have the tools to deal with my problems. A lot of this episode's problems do come from the time that it came out, I will say, even though episodes using this plot today still do the exact same things. You want an example? Minecraft and Super Mario Odyssey are kids' games. That is indisputable. They are popular with kids, and Mario Odyssey was even made specifically with kids in mind. However, adults do play them, and it's generally seen as normal. If you mock an adult for playing Minecraft or whatever, you're seen as the jerk in certain circles. For the love of God, I watch cartoons for a living, and people accept it so much they pay me money to do so. Adulthood really isn't leaving behind childhood things. On the flip side, a lot of problems with this episode are timeless. In virtually every single one of these plots, the main character will get a job. Strangely enough, though, it seems to be the interpretation of what a job is by people who have never had one. So, Sabrina is at a computer, and she's answering phones and getting paperwork dumped out on her, doing a bunch of other, job stuff. Please tell me, what is Sabrina's job? What is she actually being paid to do specifically? This is just one of those cliches that really does bother me. It's not like you couldn't find a specific job that Sabrina would find very, very difficult and make her not want to be an adult. Some people might find this more tolerable, I guess, but this is one of those cliches that really does bother me. Opposite Day had this problem too. It's like that Weird Al song mission statement. It's a lot of words and sights that means nothing! Nothing at all!
Sheesh, Spellman, how old are you? 12? You're acting like you've never been a cog in the wheels of a hopelessly bloated corporate structure before.
This was a line written by people who do creative writing for a living, something that many people dream and strive to do. It's a little bit insulting, and it sounds like you're shitting on people who didn't have your good fortune. Or rather, you know nothing about that lifestyle because you've never had that lifestyle before, because it's not common to every single adult life. And of course, all jobs have terrible pay, because why not? You know, it's such a shame that, and this is a little known fact, it's actually illegal to look for a better job with a higher pay that doesn't treat you like dirt. Yeah, as an adult, you're stuck in one job for your entire life, and there's literally nothing you can do about it. When you turn 18, they just hand you a piece of paper saying that you have to work this specific job, by law, or else you go to jail and get put to death. It's not like the average American has 6 jobs throughout the course of their life. Let's just finish this.
I never get tired of looking at this old album. See, it's pictures of the great times we all had growing up. Our junior high class trip, your 16th birthday party, prom night.
Huh, apparently I was wrong. This episode actually does have another good joke, saying that high school was the best part of your life. Actually, no, that's a fucking awful joke. I mean, it would be a good joke if it was funny and, wasn't one of my depressive triggers when I was in high school. Yeah, you're racked with anxiety, depressed to the point where you want to end it, and no one gives a shit about any of your struggles. But you gotta remember, kid, this is the best part of your life. It's all downhill from here. Isn't that a great piece of advice? If you listen to me on nothing else, please, for the love of God, stop saying that high school was the best time of your life, or anyone's life. If it's true, it's tragic as fuck, and I feel unbelievably sorry for you. And all you're saying to anyone else is that their life is all downhill. Is that really what you want to be saying to your kids, or hell, any kids, anyone? Give me one reason why I should continue with this trash.
Is it kind of an old-fashioned, pocket watch thing?
You've seen it?
Yeah, I found it in the trash. I gave it to the kids to play with.
Wait a minute. So, you reached into the garbage, the trash, and you pulled something out of it, and then you gave it to your kids to play with. What the fuck is wrong with you, Harvey? No, you know what? I refuse to take this shit seriously anymore. There's a big fundamental problem with this episode, and it's all an appeal to worse problems. You know, like when you say that you don't want to eat your vegetables, and your mom is like, they're starving kids in Africa, so eat your vegetables. Okay, that might be true, but it doesn't make the vegetables taste any less gross to you. An argument for why you should eat the vegetables was never actually made. This episode tries to make adulthood look as shitty as possible, after making childhood look as shitty as possible. I mean, maybe childhood looks better by comparison, but the episode goes out of its way to make both phases of life look absolutely horrendous. Appreciate what you got, you little shit. I mean, if the moral was life sucks and then you die, I still wouldn't like it, but at least it would be honest with itself. I've been harsh, but that's because this might be my least favorite moral ever, in all of media. At least one that's told repeatedly, one that's told on purpose. More than the typical boys versus girl plot, more than the be yourself even if you're an awful person moral, more than just about anything. As a kid, these messages were fucking everywhere. Even in shows that I really did like, they treated childhood as this something special that you can never ever recapture. Like, it was even good shows, like it was a major theme in Kids Next Door. And these messages are still in a lot of places. And they ended up giving me a lot of anxiety about growing up. It's something that I was continually afraid of actually doing. Much of what I said is based on my experience alone, but this anxiety is something that's not. I've talked to many young people in my career, and it's very common with the upcoming generation. So many of them are anxious about the world that they're coming into, and pieces of trash like this episode do not help matters. There is a ton of anxieties that young people already have about becoming an adult. The current political climate, global warming, human rights violations, disease pandemics. Enjoy your life while you're young, kids. Yuck, 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 because it's gonna get a lot worse. This is not a message that I find acceptable in any means. And let's lay down the facts. No, there is no guarantee that your life will get worse as you get older, or that you won't have the tools to be able to handle any situation that you come across. You will get new challenges, yes, but they're not insurmountable. Not by any stretch of the imagination. If the future that Sabrina or MLP or whatever is showing you is not something that seems desirable, you don't have to go that direction. You want to know the main thing that separates adulthood from childhood. That's choice. That is something that you will have more and more of as you become an adult. Not all choices are going to be fun or easy, but they're going to be yours. So make the choices that you will be happy with. You end up in a life like Sabrina's if you fall into complacency. People who stick with their current partner or their current crappy apartment or their current shitty job because they're too insecure to think they deserve something better. This episode disgusts me on a fundamental level. What's really the message here? Like I said at the beginning, enjoy being a kid. Even though it sucks, it's all downhill from here. If you want, I'll even drive the bus for you, so your story can have a happy ending. I didn't expect this review to be so angry or this long, but you don't always get what you expect. And you know what? Sometimes that's a good thing. I expected to get the kind of life that Sabrina had as an adult. Or even worse, being a homeless guy without any kind of hopes until I died of hypothermia at 25. Maybe even drowning in debt for a useless degree of a subject that I was no longer interested in, because my passion tends to be a roulette wheel. Let's just say that I got a much happier ending. And you could definitely have a happier ending too. Here's a video that I didn't want to make. Actually, that's kind of inaccurate. It's a video that I didn't want to have to make. This may be old news by now, so you've probably heard that Nickelodeon has announced that they will be making the first ever spin-off of SpongeBob SquarePants. We don't have much information at current, but we do have a few things. It's going to be in CGI, it's apparently a prequel series and a spin-off to the third movie, It's a Wonderful Sponge. The plot is going to be about a 10-year-old SpongeBob at a summer camp. It was also announced less than a year after Steven Hillenburg's death. This is not going to be a pleasant video, but let's start off slow. We'll put aside all of the context around Camp Coral, and we'll just talk about the potential of the show itself. Now, the show is not out as of yet, and these are just going to be my predictions and speculative thoughts. I could be dead wrong, but I'm fairly certain in what I'm speaking about, and I do not have hope for this spin-off. I think that it's going to crash and burn, if not be absolutely awful. I don't think that it's going to be something exceptionally awful, like, say, the Powerpuff Girls reboot or Planet Sheen. However, Camp Coral, from how it's described, has a very significant problem that nobody seems to be addressing. From what has been described to us, this is destined to be one of the most pointless spin-offs in existence. It actually showcases the difficulties in making a SpongeBob spin-off in general. Let's pick this apart one piece at a time. First of all, this is going to take place when SpongeBob was a 10-year-old kid. Why? You guys do know what kind of character that SpongeBob SquarePants is, right? Let's really think about this. SpongeBob is often called essentially a child in an adult's body. The entire first movie was about SpongeBob's quest to not be seen as just a kid. Or did the song Now That We're Men not beat that message into your brain? We've had several episodes, both new and old, that have had SpongeBob try to be perceived as more responsible and older, most notably Grandma's Kisses. He even goes to school in several episodes. In many of those episodes, Mrs. Puff's boating school is portrayed like a full-fledged high school. From what I could tell, this was actually a compromise on Stephen Hillenburg's part. Nickelodeon wanted to show with school-age SpongeBob, but he did not, because, as he put it would just be Hey Arnold underwater. So, SpongeBob going to boating school was sort of their agreement, their compromise on this. Take a look at SpongeBob's life overall. He's trying to get his driver's license. He works in a fast food restaurant, and he tries to be accepted among his peers. This is a 16-year-old's life. Granted, 16 is still a different world than 10, but it's a good showcase of the problem. SpongeBob is a very versatile character. Too versatile for something like this. Depending on the situation, he can be seen as a child or an adult, and I think that's one of the reasons for his overall popularity. Anyone can relate to him. By making him a child, what do you add? Well, you make it so it's a lot less likely for him to get in more adult situations. You also limit a lot of his freedoms. Yeah, as an adult, SpongeBob can generally go and do whatever he wants. Kids, however, gotta deal with authority figures constantly telling them what to do, and telling them no. This is why so much kids media just tries to get the parents out of the way as soon as possible. There are a lot of SpongeBob plots that could not be told if he was a kid, like the episode Sold, for instance, just as an example. But when your main character hangs around at Weenie Hut Jr., you can't tell me that there are plots that can't be tapped with his current age. There are other problems with this Camp Coral as advertised. Most notably is that I've actually already seen Camp Coral. I'm not being sarcastic either. I have actually seen quite a few episodes. There was that episode, The Inmates of Summer, where SpongeBob and Patrick think that a prison island is a summer camp. Then there was the camping episode. That episode was so good that a spin-off full of episodes just like that should be amazing, right? Club SpongeBob was about him surviving in the woods, as was Survival of the Idiots, and SpongeBob Family Vacation. Oh wait, those were SpongeBob episodes. I guess we have so many camping and wilderness episodes that just adding a whole series of them probably wouldn't hurt. I'm sorry if I got confused, it's just that I've seen Camp Lazlo before. SpongeBob is kind of like Looney Tunes or Tom and Jerry. An episode of Looney Tunes can take place in any time or place, period. If Daffy Duck is in the future, you don't question it. Sometimes Tom can be a common house cat, and sometimes he can be a concert pianist. Yes, both of those shows have had spin-offs, but they generally didn't run when the original shows were airing. They came out years later when the audience had changed. SpongeBob episodes can take place in the past, the future, the Old West, someone's dreams, in the summer, the winter, or inside Karen. A summer camp show can only take place in the summer at summer camp. Like making SpongeBob a child, you don't add more potential. You sand off potential that was already there. Phineas and Ferb can make it snow in summer. I highly doubt that SpongeBob could. And even if he could, I highly doubt that it would be worth the payoff when I could just watch Snowball Effect. And not to mention, the biggest problem with all of this is that SpongeBob is still airing. Airing a SpongeBob spin-off side by side with SpongeBob is one of the most pointless things imaginable. Then there's the CGI aspect. One of the reasons that people complain about CGI animation is because compared to 2D animation, it has very limited potential, especially in this situation. Let's take a look at another Nickelodeon property to see just what I mean. The Jimmy Neutron Power Hour. In that series of movies, Jimmy Neutron became 2D and Timmy Turner became 3D. The Jimmy Neutron characters look fine becoming 2D, because you don't generally have a problem when you make a 3D object 2D. That's generally what you do in animation to begin with. However, the Fairly OddParents characters look like mutant abominations because they were too stylized.
I'm loopy, I'm loopy.
Seriously, what the fuck is that thing? Kill it with fire. Not everything that looks good in 2D looks good in 3D. This is just a fact. It will always be a fact. In 2D animation, you can sort of fudge reality to get a specific effect. For example, some characters you'll always see at a 3/4 angle, because looking at a dead-on perspective would be just weird. And that's not something you can really do in 3D, where the camera can see everything about this character. 2D is much better for stylization. Not to say that 3D doesn't have its benefits, it definitely does over 2D. It can showcase changing styles a lot better than 3D. Wreck-It Ralph, for instance, was one of the first movies that I thought that actually needed to be 3D animated, because the different video game worlds wouldn't look as different as they did in 3D. However, the benefits of 2D are far more useful when it comes to a show like SpongeBob. SpongeBob, especially lately, is known for exaggerated cartoony expressions. You can do this with 3D. It'll end up looking either horrifying or cheap, though. The 3D animation we saw in Sponge Out of Water was pretty good, but if you think that's going to be the quality that they'll bring to a weekly television series, then you're out of your gourd. Think of 3D animation like realism. Realism can be a very useful tool, and it can be technically impressive. but making a show like, I don't know, Looney Tunes more realistic probably would detract from the point. A lot of the animation that we've seen in SpongeBob, especially lately, would be very expensive to animate in 3D, without breaking the model rigs completely. In 2D animation, no matter what the expression is, generally it costs the same. And making the show CGI is obviously an attempt to save as much money as possible. CGI shows tend to be more expensive from the start, but then you can end up reusing the models again and again and again, in ways that you can't really reuse the drawings. So, just about everything we know about this show leads me to like it less and less and have less hope for it. But now we have to talk about the elephant in the room. Camp Coral was announced less than a year after Steven Hillenburg, the creator of SpongeBob SquarePants, had died. Upon this announcement, Paul Tippett, essentially the second-in-command on SpongeBob, tweeted this: "There is no way to prove this, but it looked very much like Nickelodeon had waited just for Steven Hillenburg to die to begin announcing spin-offs and cash in on his creation." Pie Guy Rules goes deeper into this aspect, and he says it a lot better than I possibly could. I'll leave a link to his video in the description. I do want to talk about this, but I want to use it as a jumping off point for a wider discussion that we need to have, especially for an audience like mine who is interested in animation and maybe interested in pursuing a career in animation. To put it simply, the animation industry is fucked. For those of you who think that I might be mispronouncing something, let me spell it out for you. The animation industry is F-U-C-K-E-D, with a capital F-U. Right now, the animation industry is probably the worst creative industry to work in. Yes, even worse than the games industry. Full disclosure, I've been working on my own animated series for about 5 years now, and at one point that I did state that I wanted to get it on networks at some point. I no longer want to do that, but it's not because of rejection or anything. It's because of my growing realization of the systematic problems with the animation industry as a whole. It has so many huge problems that I don't know where to begin. Actually, let's start with this: how creatives get abused. Generally speaking, and with very rare exceptions, to get your creative work onto a Cartoon Network like Nickelodeon or Disney, or the Cartoon Network, you need to give up your copyright to it. You see here, this is a product based on Gravity Falls, a choose-your-own-adventure book. For Alex Hirsch, the person who created Gravity Falls to make this, he needed to get specific permission from Disney to create anything based on his own work. It's entirely up to Disney what happens to the Gravity Falls property from here on out, and Alex Hirsch gets absolutely no say in the matter. Technically speaking, if Alex Hirsch were to sketch out an image of Dipper and Mabel without Disney's permission, he could be sued for copyright infringement. This is how Cartoon Network can give the Powerpuff Girls and Teen Titans to whoever they'd like. Usually this is a trade-off for getting the funds to have a pilot made in the first place. They end up scooping up the copyrights for these projects because they don't want to end up funding a pilot and having another network poach it. Constant Pain, I believe, belongs to Nickelodeon and not Mika Wright, the person who made it. It was a pilot that never became a full thing, largely only because of one scene that very remotely resembled the 9/11 terror attacks, and it hadn't been aired since. Copyright control in the animation industry is used as a bludgeon, and I think this is something that, like, everybody knows. It seems to be a very open secret, and for some reason, it seems like very few people outside the industry has a problem with this, even though it is a very, very big problem. It's been used to abuse creators since at least the 90s. If you don't do what the network wants, they will kick you off your own show and give it to somebody else. Or even if you do end up doing what they say, when you get too much respect and reputation to really kick around, like Craig McCracken, they'll end up giving your property to other people who are much easier to control, and do exactly what the network wants. One of the biggest examples of this is with the cartoon Making Fiends.
Once there was a little girl, a girl who could make fiends. She kept the whole town terrified, the girl who could make fiends. Then there came another girl who wanted to be friends, and Detta cannot stand her, so she plots her end.
When the creator, Amy Winfrey, signed over the rights to Nickelodeon, the show was stuck in development hell for years. One 6-episode season was made, and it wasn't even put on the main channel. It was put on Nicktoons. Despite being poorly advertised, it was the most successful show on that network. However, parents complained about its disturbing content and stopped airing the episodes. This was years after Invader Zim, by the way. Nickelodeon stopped airing it, but they kept the rights, so Amy Winfrey could never make any episodes of her show ever again. Let me put it like this. One succinct example that I can give to show how much of a problem this is. Viacom has the copyright to SpongeBob's voice. Tom Kenny, the voice actor of SpongeBob, cannot do his SpongeBob voice without Viacom's permission.
Jimbo! Get a restaurant full of hungry customers out there! Where are their burgers?
Oh, Mr. Slabs, you know I can't cook a slabby patty until it's cooked just right.
The movie Sausage Party was riddled with controversy. Even though it was the first CG animated film to be rated R, most of the controversy actually wasn't from its content. It was how its animators were treated. They were demanded to work overtime for free. They were threatened with termination for not hitting deadlines. And towards the end, apparently half of the animation team was not credited. I even refused to touch the film because of these allegations. They eventually did get some kind of compensation, but what happened to the Sausage Party team was actually the standard treatment that many animation productions have. A lot of these animators find themselves being forced to work under these productions because if they don't work for a minuscule amount of money, the company will outsource the production to South Korea. Yeah, you ever wonder why so many American cartoons are animated in South Korea? The bottom 10% of American animators get paid about $38,000 a year. The median animator in South Korea gets the equivalent of $21,600 USD per year. That's a cost reduction of about 40% per person in a production that may have hundreds or thousands of people. The threat of outsourcing is a major problem in the American and Canadian animation industries. There's a big culture of, if you don't do your job for the price we tell you, we will find someone to replace you. And at current, it seems like there are many more animators wanting to get into the industry than are needed. And then there are the more dark problems. From what it seems, you're either a creative that everyone will turn a blind eye to when you do something bad, as we've seen with the recently surfacing allegations against John Kay and John Lasseter, or you're someone who will be blacklisted for saying the slightest thing wrong about a certain person, product, or network. Unless you're a huge name like Matt Groening, it's hard to find a cartoonist complain about a network or their treatment by a network. C.H. Greenblatt once made a Tumblr post about his frustrations with Nickelodeon, because he had found out about the cancellation of his show through a tweet, and not even from the network themselves. This Tumblr post was later deleted. Maybe it was because he had second thoughts, but the speculation is that Nick forced him to delete it. I think what's really fucked up about all of this, besides, everything, is that these are cartoons. These are usually the first pieces of media that we're exposed to in our lives. Most of these are aimed at kids. They can be seen as the epitome of innocence. And in a way, they're supposed to be auras of happiness. But no, a lot of what goes on behind the scenes is shrouded in darkness. Remember, this is only the stuff that we know, and all of these networks are very secretive about their practices. We don't know what happens at the inner workings of Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network. And the only thing the fans of animation tend to see are things like broken scheduling or the over-milking of a franchise. This is really the least of problems here. The animation industry is beyond corrupt. Most of the money that's made off an animated series comes from merchandising. This is because the creators usually don't get any royalties for this. The only one that benefits from merchandising is the network. Let's drive us back on track. I want to be clear. What Nickelodeon is doing with SpongeBob here and now legitimately does offend me. I find what they're doing abhorrent and disgusting. This is a show that I am not going to support in any way whatsoever. Good, bad, or in the middle. I am not going to review it. I do not care. This show does not deserve my viewership, and it doesn't deserve yours either. It may be a coincidence. From what I could tell, Nickelodeon could have made a SpongeBob spinoff at any time they wanted to. This wasn't even the first time that they toyed with the idea. At one point in history, a SpongeBob adult party cartoon was actually a very real possibility. Maybe it's just the mother of bad timing. I don't know, but it doesn't matter either way. For all anyone knows, Nickelodeon could have just waited until Steven Hillenburg died to go against his wishes and milk SpongeBob for a spinoff. The reason why it doesn't matter is because even if they did that, it would not be the most immoral thing that they've ever done. I want to say that there's a bright light at the end of the tunnel here, but there isn't. Viacom, Time Warner, Disney, they're some of the biggest companies on the planet. Waiting for them to fail, no matter how many bad choices they make, probably isn't going to happen. The problem is with the nature of animation specifically as a medium. Making good quality animation, like the kind that you see on television, is legitimately expensive. When it comes to making something that's live action, like a live action movie, you can make a lot of very good, very popular things for relatively cheap. For example, the Blair Witch Project only cost $60,000 to make. Compare that to the world of animation. It can take hundreds of thousands of dollars to get one episode done. Ren and Stimpy's 11-minute pilot cost $300,000, and that was back in the early 90s. It's nearly impossible for an independent to compete with that kind of thing without taking a decade. Even the best and most well-liked cartoonists of our time, Gennady Tarkovsky, Craig McCracken, Lauren Faust. There are stories of them being repeatedly abused by the networks. And even then, they can't just go and create their own cartoon without network control, like a live-action director could, because that kind of stuff takes millions, because animation is just that expensive. And we don't yet have animation's Unity, a program that lowers the barrier to entry for newcomers into the medium. Things like Toon Boom, the industry standard, you still need a license to use it. These days, more often than not, I feel like I just want to burn it all down. This is an industry where if we didn't have creatives being abused by the networks and the industry as a whole, we probably wouldn't have creatives at all. And that's just a little bit fucked up.